All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 13 of Lives of the Saints. We actually have 3 saints today. So Jeremy's picked out. I haven't read any of them, Jeremy.
Okay, great.
So this will be all new to me. I'm really looking forward to St. Luke because I haven't really read his biography before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we'll talk about Saint Menas of Egypt, and he's widely known in the Eastern and the Western Church. He's canonized in both, and then we'll talk about Saint Longurion. I think that's his name. Was that his name?
Longinus, I think.
Yeah, Longinus. Yeah, he was the Centurion who was at the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
And so we have some more details about his life, and then yes, we're going to talk about Saint Luke the Apostle and the Evangelist, who traveled with Saint Paul and wrote the Gospel of Luke with the help of Saint Paul, and then also wrote and also from interviewing Theotokos, Mary, and then he also traveled with Paul and wrote the Acts of the Apostles.
Right.
We'll
And
talk about that.
wasn't he the first person to do an icon of Christ?
Yep, he did. He did an icon. He did an icon of Theotokos holding infant Christ.
Okay.
And he showed it to Theotokos, and she blessed it. And then also he did an icon of Peter and an icon of Paul.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, yeah.
I hope. Do you have those? Are you going to show us those?
I don't know if we don't have the Peter and the Paul one.
Okay.
But there are several who say that they are the icon painted by Saint Luke. So
okay. See how far back we can get.
Yeah, I did have them. I'll pull them up again because there's quite a list, so it's hard to say.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there to it. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
There we go. Okay. Anyway. Oh yeah, here it is. I did. Oh no, is that it? Anyway. Okay. Yeah, we'll get to it. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Let me get my glasses.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone. Hello. We're gonna go.
Yeah.
These are shorter, which is why we chose 3. I'm gonna move it over to this screen so I can see. Okay. Whoop. Oh, sorry. There we go. Can you still see it?
I see it good. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll move it over here, then I can see. Okay, good. Saint Menas of Egypt. So I'm sharing Saint Menas because I was talking with my wife and I said, "Hey, we're going to do Lives of the Saints tomorrow," and because you texted me last night and you're like, "Hey, who are we gonna do?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." So I said to my wife, "I'm like, I don't know who we're going to do," and she goes, "You should do Saint Menas."
Perfect.
I was like, "Okay, sounds good. We'll do Saint Menas." So we'll start with Saint Menas. I don't know why she said that, but she did, and I take that seriously. So.
Yes, you have to.
The Holy Great Martyr Menas, an Egyptian by birth, was a military officer and served in the Coitian region of Phrygia under the Centurion Firmilian during the reign of Emperors Diocletian and Maximian. He was praised and admired for his bravery in battle, his patience, and his self-discipline. In 298, the emperors published an edict ordering everyone to worship the idols. Those serving in the legions were ordered to capture and persecute Christians. As soon as St. Menas heard this impious decree, he threw down his soldier's belt, a sign of military rank, and withdrew to a mountain above Koteon, where he lived an ascetical life of fasting and prayer. He spent a long time in the wilderness, suffering great privation and laboring in feats of prayer, fasting, and nocturnal vigils. Thus the saint purified himself of every passion of soul and body. When his heart was strengthened with godly zeal and his soul aflame with love for God, divine grace came upon him and he had a vision. He regarded this as a sign that he was to follow the path of martyrdom. Therefore, he left the mountain and went into the city where the people were celebrating a pagan festival. At that time, St. Menas was approximately 50 years old. Standing in the midst of the crowd, he shouted, "There is only one true God, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Your gods are demons, and your idols have been fashioned by craftsmen. These inanimate objects are nothing but metal, wood, and stone." Those who heard his voice, left after their dancing and their games, and went to see who had disrupted their idolatrous festival, marveling at his boldness. They seized and beat him, then brought him before Pyrrhus, the city prefect. When he saw Menas, he asked him who he was and why he was creating a disturbance. The saint replied, "I am an Egyptian, a servant of Jesus Christ, the ruler of all things. I was a soldier and served in the imperial army for most of my life. But since the emperor has chosen to follow the path of idolatry and to persecute Christians, I chose to dwell with the wild animals in the wilderness rather than obey the impious commands of those who do not know God." When the prefect heard this, he became enraged and had the saint thrown into prison. The next morning, Pyrrhus urged Saint Menas to return to the army, offering to restore his former rank if he would offer sacrifice to the pagan gods. Menas refused, and he was subjected to many cruel tortures. The prefect urged him to submit to the edict and offer sacrifice to the idols, but the martyr remained firm in his faith, saying that he would never deny Christ. Pyrrhus ordered further torments, but seeing that he could not persuade Saint Menas, he ordered that he be taken outside the city and beheaded. As he was being led to the place of execution, he asked his friends, who were secret Christians, to take his body back to Egypt for burial when the persecution had ceased. These friends gathered the martyr's relics at night and hid them until the persecution was over. Later, they were brought to Egypt and placed in a church dedicated to Saint Menas, southwest of Alexandria. Saint Menas received the crown of martyrdom in the year 304. By God's grace, he continues to work miracles for those who entreat him with faith and love. He is known for healing various illnesses, delivering people from demonic possession, and is a protector, especially during times of war. In 1942, General Erwin Rommel had conquered almost all of North Africa and was heading toward Alexandria. The Nazis had reached El Alamein, where they camped for the night, intending to attack Alexandria in the morning. St. Menas, however, did not allow this to happen. At midnight on October 23rd and 24th, certain people noticed St. Menas coming out of his ancient church, leading camels into the German camp. Overcome by panic, weakness, and confusion, Rommel's troops fled. The battle ended on November 4th with the enemy in full retreat. It is regarded as a turning point in the whole war. Later, Winston Churchill said, "Before Alamein, we never had a victory. After Alamein, we never had a defeat." The Allies offered that place to Patriarch Christophoros of Alexandria so that the Church of St. Menas could be rebuilt. We pray to St. Menas to ask for his help in finding lost objects. Martyr Longinus, the Centurion, who stood at the cross of the Lord. The holy martyr Longinus, the Centurion, a Roman soldier, served in Judea under the command of the governor Pontius Pilate. When our Savior Jesus Christ was crucified, it was the detachment of soldiers under the command of Longinus which stood watch on Golgotha at the very foot of the Holy Cross. Longinus and his soldiers were eyewitnesses of the final moments of the earthly life of the Lord and of the great and awesome portents that appeared at his death. These events shook the centurion's soul. Longinus believed in Christ and confessed before everyone, truly this was the Son of God. According to church tradition, Longinus was the soldier who pierced the side of the crucified Savior with a spear and received healing from an eye affliction when blood and water poured forth from the wound. After the crucifixion and burial of the Savior, Longinus stood watch with his company at the sepulchre of the Lord. These soldiers were present at the all-radiant resurrection of Christ. The Jews bribed them to lie and say that his disciples had stolen away the body of Christ, but Longinus and two of his comrades refused to be seduced by the Jewish gold. They also refused to remain silent about the miracle of the resurrection. Having come to believe in the Savior, the soldiers received baptism from the apostles and decided to leave military service. St. Longinus left Judea to preach about Jesus Christ, the Son of God, in his native land, Cappadocia, and his 2 comrades followed him. The fiery words of those who had actually participated in the great events in Judea swayed the hearts and minds of the Cappadocians. Christianity began quickly to spread throughout the city and their surrounding villages. When they learned of this, the Jewish elders persuaded Pilate to send a company of soldiers to Cappadocia to kill Longinus and his comrades. When the soldiers arrived at Longinus's village, the former centurion himself came out to meet the soldiers and took them to his home. After a meal, the soldiers revealed the purpose of their visit, not knowing that the master of the house was the very man whom they were seeking. Then Longinus and his friends identified themselves and told the startled soldiers to carry out their duty. The soldiers wanted to let the saints go and advised them to flee, but they refused to do this, showing their firm intention to suffer for Christ. The holy martyrs were beheaded, and their bodies were buried at the place where the saints were martyred. The head of St. Longinus, however, was sent to Pilate. Pilate gave orders to cast the martyr's head on a trash heap outside the city walls. After a while, a certain blind widow from Cappadocia arrived in Jerusalem with her son to pray at the holy places and to ask that her sight be restored. After becoming blind, she had sought the help of physicians to cure her, but all their efforts were in vain. The woman's son became ill shortly after reaching Jerusalem, and he died a few days later. The widow grieved for the loss of her son, who had served as her guide. St. Longinus appeared to her in a dream and comforted her. He told her that she would see her son in heavenly glory and also receive her sight. He told her to go outside the city walls, and there she would find his head in a great pile of refuse. Guides led the blind woman to the rubbish heap, and she began to dig with her hands. As soon as she touched the martyr's head, the woman received her sight, and she glorified God and St. Longinus. Taking up the head, she brought it to the place where she was staying and washed it. The next night, St. Longinus appeared to her again, this time with her son. They were surrounded by a bright light, and St. Longinus said, "Woman, behold the son for whom you grieve. See what glory and honor are his now, and be consoled. God has numbered him with those in his heavenly kingdom. Now take my head and your son's body and bury them in the same casket. Do not weep for your son, for he will rejoice forever in great glory and happiness." The woman carried out the saint's instructions and returned to her home in Cappadocia. There she buried her son and the head of St. Longinus. Once she had been overcome by grief for her son, but her weeping was transformed into joy when she saw him with St. Longinus. She had sought healing for her eyes and also received healing of her soul. And now, Apostle and Evangelist Luke. And he's celebrated this week, which is one of the reasons I chose him.
And St. Longinus is today.
Yes, St. Longinus is today. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
I failed to mention that. Thanks for noticing that. So this is actually one of my favorite icons. This is an icon of St. Luke painting or writing the icon of Theotokos and the infant Christ, which is the first icon that he ever made. So it's an icon of him making an icon. And it also has the canopy over it and the veil, which is suggestive of Theotokos, and the canopy is suggestive of Christ.
Right.
Like the Pantocrator looking down from heaven. So there's a lot of there's a lot of fractal things going on here, which is my favorite subject.
Jeremy, I have to go put my geese away. So
okay. I'll read the do you want to hear it? Okay. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
I said it's okay, I can go back and listen to it. But
we can wait if you want.
You want to hold down the fort? It won't take me very long.
Sure, yeah, I can talk. I'll think of what should I do? I'll read my favorite psalm. How about that? While you're gone, we'll read Psalm 18 while we wait for you. All right. Hello, everyone. Now you have to hear me listen to. Let's see. Oswald asked, "Have you all covered Saint Brendan the Navigator already?" I have not read his life. I do not know that saint. I will make note of that and look him up. And welcome to everyone else. Hello, Stephen. Hello, William Branch. Hello, Joy. Good evening. I will read Psalm 18 or Psalm 19, depending. It's Psalm 19 in the Western Canon, Psalm 18 in the Septuagint. The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament shows the creation of his hands. Day to day utters speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voices are not heard. Their proclamation went forth into all the earth, and their words to the ends of the world. In the sun he set his tabernacle, and it rejoices exceedingly, like a bridegroom coming forth from his bridal chamber, like a strong man to run a race. Its rising is from one end of heaven, and its circuit runs to the other end, and nothing shall be hidden from its heat. The law of the Lord is blameless, converting souls. The testimony of the Lord is trustworthy, making children wise. Ordinances of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is bright, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring unto ages of ages. The judgments of the Lord are true, being altogether just. More to be desired are they than gold, and a very precious stone, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. For indeed your servant keeps them. In keeping them there is a great reward. Who will understand his transgressions? Cleanse me from hidden sins, and spare your servant from unnatural sins. If they have no dominion over me, then I shall be blameless, and I shall be cleansed from great sin. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always pleasing before you, O Lord, my helper and my redeemer. And she's not back yet, so it looks like we're going to another one of my favorite psalms. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. No, I can't remember exactly what number it is. I know I should know it. That's one of my favorite psalms, and I can't remember what number it is. Shame on me. Okay, well, we'll read, because I can't remember. Psalm 89 keeps coming into my head, so I'm going to read that. Because Shari's not back yet. I know you came for Lives of the Saints, and you get a psalm reading instead. But you get both. O Lord, you became a refuge to us in generation and generation, before the mountains were made, and before the earth and the world were formed. And from everlasting to everlasting you are. Do not let man be turned back to humiliation. And you said, return, you sons of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday, which passed, and like a watch in the night. Years shall be objects of contempt to them. In the morning let men pass by like grass. In the morning let man pass by like grass. In the morning let him blossom and pass by. In the evening let him fall off, be dried up and withered. For we fainted in your wrath, and in your wrath we were troubled. You set your transgressions before you. You set our transgressions before you, our time in the light of your face. For all our days are failed, and in your wrath we fainted. Our years were spent in thought like a spider. As for the days of our years, their span is 70 years. But if we stay strong, perhaps 80. And most of them are labor and pain, for meekness came upon us, and we shall be chastened. Who knows the power of your wrath, and who knows your anger because of your fear? So make known your right hand to us, that we may number our days, and our heart may be bound with wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? And be entreated concerning your servants. We were filled with your mercy in the morning, and in all our days we greatly rejoiced and were glad. Gladden us in return for the days you humbled us. For the years we saw evil things. And behold your servants and your works, and guide their sons. And let the brightness of the Lord our God be upon us, and prosper for us the works of our hands.
I'm back.
All right. Welcome back. I just read Psalms while you were gone.
Yeah. Risto says, what aspects of that psalm make it your fave?
So Psalm 18 or Psalm 19, depending on which canon you look at. It's the idea that all of creation is speaking, it's basically praising God. It's like all of creation is speaking out the language of God. And if you pay attention to it, if you look at it and notice it, you can see that and participate in it. And and that's just a beautiful image to me. That's why it's my favorite. Psalm 18 is just, the heavens shall declare the Lord, right? I think it's beautiful. It makes it reminds me to be grateful to see the sunrise, and to be grateful to see the sunset, and to be grateful that I can apprehend that they're beautiful, because in all of that is God's grace.
Yeah. Okay, St. Luke. Let's go.
All right, St. Luke. The holy apostle and evangelist Luke was a native of Syrian Antioch, a companion of the holy apostle Paul, and a physician enlightened in the Greek medical arts. Hearing about Christ, Luke arrived in Palestine and fervently accepted the preaching of salvation from the Lord himself. As one of the 70 apostles, St. Luke was sent by the Lord with the others to preach the kingdom of heaven during the Savior's earthly life. After the resurrection, the Lord Jesus Christ appeared to Saints Luke and Cleopas on the road to Emmaus. Luke accompanied St. Paul on his second missionary journey, and from that time they were inseparable. When Paul's co-workers had forsaken him, only Luke remained to assist him in his ministry. After the martyric death of the first-ranked apostles Peter and Paul, St. Luke left Rome to preach in Achaia, Libya, Egypt, and the Thebaid. I don't know how to say that word. Thebaid. He ended his life by suffering martyrdom in the city of Thebes. Tradition credits St. Luke with painting the first icons of the Mother of God. Let the grace of him who was born of me and my mercy be with these icons, said the all-pure Virgin after seeing the icons. St. Luke also painted icons of the first-ranked apostles Peter and Paul. St. Luke's Gospel was written in the years 62 to 63 at Rome under the guidance of the Apostle Paul. In the preliminary verses, St. Luke precisely sets forth the purpose of his work. He proposes to record in chronological order everything known by Christians about Jesus Christ and his teachings. By doing this, he provided a firmer historical basis for Christian teaching. He carefully investigated the facts and made generous use of the oral tradition of the Church and of what the all-pure Virgin Mary herself had told him. In St. Luke's Gospel, the message of the salvation made possible by the Lord Jesus Christ and the preaching of the Gospel are of primary importance. St. Luke also wrote the Acts of the Holy Apostles at Rome around 62 to 63 AD. The book of Acts, which is a continuation of the four Gospels, speaks about the works and the fruits of the Holy Apostles after the ascension of the Savior. At the center of the narrative is the Council of the Holy Apostles at Jerusalem in the year 51, a church event of great significance, which resulted in the separation of Christianity from Judaism and its independent dissemination into the world. The theological focus of the book of Acts is the coming of the Holy Spirit, who will guide the church into all truth until the second coming of Christ. The holy relics of St. Luke were taken from Constantinople and brought to Padua, Italy, at some point in history. Perhaps this was during the infamous Crusade of 1204. In 1992, Metropolitan Hieronymus Jerome of Thebes requested the Roman Catholic bishop in Thebes to obtain a portion of St. Luke's relics for the saint's empty sepulchre in the Orthodox cathedral in Thebes. The Roman Catholic bishop Antonio Matiazzo of Padua, noting that Orthodox pilgrims came to Padua to venerate the relics, while many Catholics did not even know that the relics were there, appointed a committee to investigate the relics in Padua and the skull of St. Luke in the Catholic Cathedral of St. Vico in Prague. The skeleton was determined to be that of an elderly man of strong build. In 2001, a tooth found in the coffin was judged to be consistent with the DNA of Syrians living near the area of Antioch, dating from 72 to 416 AD. The skull in Prague perfectly fit the neck bone of the skeleton. The tooth found in the coffin in Padua was also found to fit the jawbone of the skull. Bishop Matiazzo sent a rib from the relics to Metropolitan Hieronymus to be venerated in St. Luke's original tomb in the Orthodox Cathedral at Thebes. St. Luke is also commemorated on April 22nd.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Risto says that he proposes that the East and West agree upon a common psalm numbering.
Well,
I call an ecumenical council to agree on the psalm numbering.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, the Septuagint numbering is organized a little differently than the stuff from the Masoretic text. And the King James version and then subsequent English versions all adopted the Masoretic text numbering, which is, it just organizes them a little different. And the reason is that the King James version smashes two of them together that the Septuagint has separated, and then there's one other one that changes. I can't remember. But anyway, it's just, they're just split up a little differently, so they're numbered a little differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that the Jewish numbering is different than the Christian one because I don't know which psalm it is now. I think it's 22. My God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Yes, well, it's 22 in the Septuagint and 23 in the everyone else's.
Okay, yeah.
Oh wait, no. Let's see.
No.
Anyway, no, I'm wrong. It's 20. It's 21 in Septuagint,
Yeah.
22 in everyone else's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Psalm 23 is 22.
Yes.
Oh, Dawn.
Psalm 22 in the Masoretic text. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Dawn.
And 21 in the Septuagint. I had it backwards. Math is hard. That's why I have to use Excel to do it. I can't do it in my head. I can't subtract one in my head. That's too hard.
All right, I'm going to drop a link.
Sounds good.
And if anybody would like to join us, please feel welcome. To talk about,
whatever you want.
Any thoughts that came up during the readings of these lives of these saints? Or
and I want to clarify, just to clarify for my own conscience sake, I do not by any means represent the Orthodox Church in any way, shape, or fashion. My thoughts are probably heretical and I'm probably retarded. So anything I say is my own opinion and my own opinion only. Please do not judge the Orthodox Church according to my stupid ramblings. And if you judge it by my behavior, then you'll have a very poor view of the Orthodox Church indeed. So please forgive me.
I always preface everything I say with, to me, it means.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks to George MacDonald.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom in that, and our understandings are always growing, hopefully. Right, so.
Yeah. I have Caviar Cowboys in the chat, but
Caviar Cowboys? What? What
he's
is that?
tried to join several times.
Oh, that's an interesting name, Caviar Cowboy, because those are kind of like, well, not many of the cowboys I grew up around would be very interested in trying caviar. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I'm going to pass on this one, Caviar Cowboys. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, who else is going to join? Do this Orthodox have Psalm 151? Yes, but we call it Psalm 150. Let's make sure that we're talking about the same thing. I'll pull it up. Oh no, we do have 151. I'm sorry. You're right. Yes, we do. This was a psalm written with David's own hand, although outside the number when he fought in single combat with Goliath. I was small among my brothers and the youngest in my father's house. I tended my father's sheep. My hands built a musical instrument. My fingers tuned a lyre. And who shall tell my Lord? The Lord himself, he himself hears. He sent forth his angel and took me from my father's sheep, and he anointed me with his anointing oil. My brothers were handsome and tall, but the Lord took no pleasure in them. I went out to meet the foreigner, and he cursed me with his idols, but I drew his own sword and beheaded him, and removed disgrace from the children of Israel.
Cassandra, he has joined a live stream that I did before. And he told me that he likes to join live streams. And, you know, I don't mind a general live stream join, but I'm not sure how I feel about joining this one. That's my honest opinion. So I just err on the side of caution.
Yeah, I trust your gut.
Thank you. But I did tell him that he's welcome in the chat before, and he's welcome in the community if he wants to be part of it. So, but he hasn't done that yet.
You got to ease your way into the circle of trust.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you. Trying to remain, you know, it's a tension that we hold here in this loving space. But yeah. And, you know, to be honest, as a woman, I feel slightly more vulnerable. So I have to keep those things in mind too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a risk of putting your face and name out on the interwebs and saying things that not everyone likes, right? I thought a lot about it and prayed about it and talked with my priest about it and talked with my family about it. And everyone seemed to be okay. Like it all fell in line. So we're here,
you know,
talking about crazy stuff.
Who it was who said something about people who get on YouTube or whatever have nothing to lose.
I think Paul said it originally. Paul Vanderklay said it a few years ago.
Yeah,
when he started getting on YouTube.
Yeah, and you know that I totally relate to that. And I can also relate to people who do have something to lose, you know, like maybe a job or whatever.
Right.
So we all have to use our discretion when it comes to this place. And so, yeah. Risto is popping on. Nice to see Risto. I think. Hello.
Good evening. Welcome. Hello.
Good evening.
Hi. I think I've spoken to you once before, but
I think I came on one time. Yep.
A long time ago.
Yep.
Risto and I had a really good conversation. It was like my inaugural live stream on my channel.
Yeah.
It was fun. We had a good talk. His fellow math dork.
So what brings you on? Did you have something in particular you want to talk about, or just hanging out?
Well, I'm game for talking about anything. You read a couple Psalms, and I've been into this Psalms quite a bit this past year or two. So So I've
Are you
really appreciated them.
are you doing reading them through on a regular basis, or how are you working that?
Yeah, originally it was structured. Right now it's pretty unstructured. I should get some better structure, but first it was a project with me and my kids where we read through one every day.
Mhm.
And then we also looked at the Wikipedia entry for each psalm.
Hmm.
And he would usually show different liturgical uses, talk about like use it in Jewish services or Orthodox or Catholic or Anglican, and
Yeah.
then different songs that referenced it throughout the years or different psalters. So is quite the learning experience.
Mhm.
That sounds really
So
interesting.
did you develop a favorite, Risto?
Oh, a favorite. I don't know if I have a favorite. For a long time, I was praying Psalm 32 and 103 every day, those two. But it switches. Like this
Mhm.
morning, I read 27, which again, I think our number is going to be off,
Are you using the not Septuagint? You're using you're using the Masoretic numbers, right? Like the King James
I
and
think
the
so.
American
Yeah, I
Bibles.
think
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
So we read 27 this morning, and I was like, oh, that's probably should be my psalm for a while.
Mm.
That's one thing I appreciate about the Psalms is there's such a variety of experience and emotion and
Yeah.
situation that it's easy to find yourself in a similar spot in the Psalms, and then it gives me a way to pray.
Yeah.
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 Okay, now I want to know what it says. Psalm
There's
27.
and there's a book. Hold on. While you look that up, I'll share this this book that really opened up the scriptures for me. And Shari has to pull it up on the screen, but
Oh yeah. There you go.
so this is commentary done by it's an Orthodox theologian, and I'm using the modern definition of theologian, not the traditional the traditional definition of theologian, but he's an Orthodox priest, and he goes through psalm by psalm and basically lays out how each psalm is referring to Christ or is in the voice of Christ or etc. Very enlightening book, very, very great stuff.
Mm. That looks awesome. There's
And it's laid out in such a way like it's psalm by psalm, so you can just, if you want to just read one and read the commentary, read one, read the commentary, it totally works with that. It does follow the Septuagint numbering, but it's easy enough to find in your own psalter, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a really helpful book for me.
I can see why you loved Psalm 27. I'm just looking at it here.
Yeah, so what is that in the Septuagint numbering?
Probably 26, right?
Let's look. Mine has both numbers.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In Judaism, they're known by the first line. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Psalm 26 in the Septuagint. So
and in Catholicism as well. I think by the Latin first line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Well, real quick too, when Christ references Psalm 22 and says, my Lord, why hast thou forsaken me? Like in that time, as far as I understand, that was like shorthand for referring people to the entire psalm. It was like he's quoting the first line of the psalm, but he's quoting. It's like that means he's quoting the whole psalm.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, because Judaism knows them by their first line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumbled and fell. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war may rise up against me, in this I will be confident. One thing I have desired of the Lord, that will I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret place of his tabernacle he shall hide me, and he shall set me high upon a rock. And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. Therefore I will offer sacrifices of joy in his tabernacle. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me and answer me. When you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, will I seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not leave me nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in a smooth path because of my enemies. Do not deliver me to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and such as breathe out violence. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Wait. I say that to my animals all the time. Wait. I was taking my horses, moving them from one pasture to another, and my horses are like dogs. I just go, come on, and they all come running. And then I walked them into the other pasture, and two of them came, and I have this big percher on. And he stood there at the gate, and his ears were going like this, which is like, where's the grain? Why don't you have it? You think I'm coming in? I'm not coming in. That's what that means. I'm like, Merlin, come on. And there's no way he's coming in. So then I had to go get some grain and walk back. And then they're hot on my heels, and I'm like, wait. And they all go back. You know?
Yeah.
They're really good.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Is he named Merlin from because of that hideous strength, or?
I do emphasize the weight. No, he's Merlin because when I got him, I thought, this man is a wizard. Like, he is just smart. People think draft horses are dumb. Smartest horse I've ever met. Like the two saddle horses go running into the pasture, and I could have closed the gates on them and they were caught, right? But Merlin's like, wait a minute, something's missing.
Smelled a trap. Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of that scene from Seven Samurai. They had a have you ever seen that movie? Have you seen Seven Samurai?
No. Well, maybe a long time ago.
It's one of my favorite films. But there's this they want to hire a samurai to guard the city because the city is going to be attacked. So they sent out the word, and the samurais are coming in, and they had the mayor of the city basically sitting in a hut, and then there was another samurai who was hiding next to the door, and when someone would come in, he would attack them, and that was immediately like, if you get attacked, you're done. Sorry, you're done. Yeah. So there were guy after guy would come in, and he would get attacked, and the samurai would take him out, and they would send him out. And then there was one samurai who came in, and he saw the man sitting there, and he went to step in, and he just stopped, and he smiled, and he's like, and so he ended up being one of the 7 samurai that they hired. So, and it's actually so. Fun filmography thing is that the Western Magnificent Seven is based pretty closely on the story of the 7 samurai, but it's from the story of
I remember that.
Westerns, like a cowboy instead of the samurai, but same story.
That right there.
Yeah,
that's Kurosawa.
Nice. Excellent.
So Joy says that you shared the Psalm 50 Aramaic chant.
Oh yeah.
Will YouTube
Um,
take the channel down if we share it?
I don't know. I hope not. I could at
I'm
least
getting
point
good at
to it.
editing these things out, by the way. So
Good.
we always chance it.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, the first time I heard this story, or the first time I heard this performance, I was like 4 weeks into Great Lent, and so I was pretty spiritually raw at this point. And so this I'll move it over here so I can see.
Rome reports.
So
Do you want-
this was, the Pope was visiting Georgia. This cathedral is one of the oldest cathedrals in Georgia. At one point, there were 365 cathedrals dedicated to St. George in the country of Georgia. I don't know if they, I mean, not cathedrals, but churches. I don't know if they all exist still, but this one is a huge one. It's been there, and it was built in like the 400s and then rebuilt in around 1000. And it's the place where the robe of Christ is believed to be. So there was a woman who anyway, when she touched the robe of Christ, her hands like grabbed onto it and she fell down basically dead on the spot. And then they were trying to find that later, and there was like there was a saint who had put down a pillar where he thought the robe was, and then that night the pillar lifted and moved over to a different place and planted, and that's where it still is, and that pillar is over where the robe of Christ lies. So that's this church. So there's all of that background, and then then they perform. This is the Psalm 51 in Aramaic, being performed in Georgian chant. So here we go.
Did you turn it up a bit?
Up as loud as it'll go. Sorry.
Thank you.
That one, it's so good. So I know the title says it's Our Father. It's not. It's Psalm 51.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I will. So let me pull up this psalm. I have it. Let me share it, and I'll read it because this is a beautiful.
Yeah.
This psalm is part of every Orthodox service I've ever been to, and it's part of most Orthodox people's prayer rule. So we pray. We say this as part of our prayers every day. Have mercy on me, O God, according to thy great mercy, and according to the multitude of thy compassions, blot out my transgression. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I know mine iniquity, and my sin is ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned and done this evil before thee, that thou mightest be justified in thy words and prevail when thou art judged. For behold, I was conceived in iniquities, and in sins did my mother bear me. For behold, thou hast loved truth. The hidden and secret things of thy wisdom hast thou made manifest unto me. Thou shalt sprinkle me with hyssop, and I shall be made clean. Thou shalt wash me, and I shall be made whiter than snow. Thou shalt make me to hear joy and gladness. The bones that be humbled, they shall rejoice. Turn thy face away from my sins, and blot out all mine iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation, and with thy governing spirit establish me. I shall teach transgressors thy ways, and the ungodly shall turn back unto thee. Deliver me from blood guiltiness, O God, thou God of my salvation. My tongue shall rejoice in thy righteousness. O Lord, thou shalt open my lips, and my mouth shall declare thy praise. For if thou hadst desired sacrifice, I had given it. With whole burnt offerings thou shalt not be pleased. A sacrifice unto God is a broken spirit. A heart that is broken and humbled, God will not despise. Do good, O Lord, in thy good pleasure unto Zion, and let the walls of Jerusalem be builded. Then shalt thou be pleased with the sacrifice of righteousness, with oblation and whole burnt offerings. Then shall they offer bullocks upon thine altar.
Jan God says, "Oh, look. Looks like sabachthani is closer to sacrifice than forsaken." Seems curious.
That chant, would you call that chant or singing?
Yeah, that's chant.
It it reminded me of shape note singing.
I don't know what that is.
It's I don't know much about it. I'm just barely familiar with it. I've heard a few shape note songs, but I
Yeah.
googled it. I googled it while it was playing, and I guess it goes back to 1000 AD. Shape note singing goes way back.
Yeah.
So there may be a connection between the two of them.
Yeah, chant goes back to about 500 AD, I believe. There was a saint who basically he was dumb for some time, and then he had a vision and he went into heaven and heard it. He heard Octo Actos, and he came back and wrote like over 1800 hymns. And we still sing some of the hymns that he wrote. We still have some of them. And he basically established the tradition for Orthodox chant. And we still follow that for Byzantine anyway. Russia has their own tradition of chant, but most of the Orthodox Church uses the Byzantine musical theory.
Who was that?
I know you had to ask. Hold on. I'll have to look it up. 1 second. I'll find it.
Yeah, Sacred Harp. Yeah, Joy. That's, I think, shape note singing. I don't know if that's the same, a different name for it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm still looking for the answer to your question.
Upcycle's asking, is it Saint Romanus the Melodious?
I can't remember well enough to say yay or nay, but that sounds familiar. Let's see. Echoes tradition.
I'm going to drop another link in here just in case.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that piece was and I should have been specific. The Pope was visiting the Georgian Orthodox Church, so they're in an Orthodox church, but the Pope was there visiting as a good gesture of goodwill, and they performed that for him while he was there. How he didn't convert to Orthodoxy on the spot, I'm not sure, but
I think he has a lot on the line.
including his soul. So who knows? Okay, so so this one, according to, let's see, Saint Joseph the hymnographer, it went through several forms, but this is not the story that I read originally. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm still trying to. I should have had this information instead of just dropping these nuggets without actually being able to back it up.
I disagree. Just drop those nuggets. Always look it up later.
So, I mean, St. John of Damascus gets some credit for it. St. Joseph the hymnographer, I think, was the one I was thinking of, and it was actually in the 9th century. St. John of Damascus lived in the 8th century. But as far as I know, there was someone who kind of started it in the 5th century, but I can't remember who that was. I'll gather that information offline and share it next week.
And I'm sorry, for some reason I totally missed what you were looking at. What was this about?
The tradition, the musical form, it's called octoechos. It's basically it's the tradition of Byzantine chant. It's the structure of Byzantine chant.
Okay.
So there's 8 tones, so it's octoechos.
Mm-hmm.
And the tone is basically different modes of a scale. I don't know a lot about music theory, but that's basically as much as I know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so they sing different hymns with different tones, and they use different tones. The tones rotate with the liturgical cycle. They're part of the liturgical calendar. So we sing the same hymns, but they'll sometimes use different tones depending on what time of year it is. And then the tone is kind of dictated. The tone for the day is kind of dictated by where we are in the liturgical cycle, and that's also related to the color of the robes that all of the clergy are wearing. There's a whole system. I don't know much about it, but I've looked a little bit into it. It's all integrated. It's all integrated into the liturgical calendar, basically.
Yeah, when I was taken in as a catechumen, it was during Zoom. I was taken in as a catechumen, and then what did I say? It was during COVID. Sorry, it's been a long day. Did I say it was during Zoom? I was taken in on a Zoom call, but it was during COVID. And after COVID, the church decided, the congregation decided they didn't want to be online anymore. So that was the end of that. And I called the priest and talked to him, like, what do I do now? Because I really didn't know. And he said, and he gave me these octoechos, like recordings of them.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, here you go. You could learn these. I'm like, I didn't even know what to use them for.
Right.
I have these recordings on my computer, and I'm like, press the button, and it just, and then and I'm like, okay, I got octoechos. Now what?
Right.
Good Lord.
Yeah. There are some prayers or some like kontakions that will tell you what tone to use to sing them. There are some prayers that have that, tied to, but others are just tied to the what time of year it is liturgically. So it's a complex system. I don't know much about it. I mean, I saw this guy giving like a 4-hour lecture on the basics, and I was like, oh, that's a much for me.
I guess if you were in the choir or something, it would be, you could, see it working itself out, right?
Yeah.
Understand it better, but just to learn about it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do see a good boy, Cassandra.
Big dog.
He is a good boy. Yes.
Mhm.
I saw a dog. So there was this. Okay, just a minute, Hulky. There was this Pyrenees that my neighbor 4 weeks ago. My neighbor called me and she's like, "Is your dog home?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're all here." And she's like, "Oh, because we saw a dog on the road, and our road is long, right, like 20 kilometers." And I said it was not mine. And then I saw it like a week later, and then I saw it about 2 weeks later, and I'm like, "What the heck? This poor dog."
Mhm.
And lots of people drop their pets that they don't want off on our road
Yeah.
because it's just off the highway. And so anyway, and then today I went to town. I was coming home, and it was on the highway heading to town on way
Mhm.
off the road. And I'm like, so I called the SPCA, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we know about that dog. 40 people have called. It belongs to somebody. It's a Pyrenee, and that's its territory." I'm like, "Are you serious?" I said, "It was halfway down the Sheep Creek Hill, you know?"
Wow.
And I stopped in a pullout to see if I could call it, and it just crossed the highway and went straight up this, side hill. I was like, "Okay, well, hopefully it doesn't get killed on the highway." But yeah.
Yeah. You live in the wild country.
Yeah. I don't have this photo I took this photo. I don't know if you can see it or not. Just a minute, Hawk. Have to be petting him at all times. All times. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, here. I have to do this old school because I don't have the technology. Does this screen just glare?
No,
There we go.
we can see there's like a cow.
And some
See
people
a
on
white-faced cow.
horseback. See the cow?
Oh yeah, I can see the people on horseback. Barely. Yep. There we go. Yep.
On my way home from town today, they're bringing the cows in off the range.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's time. Bring them to the feedlot.
No, they bring them into the ranch and then they separate them and feed calves for the winter.
Mm.
Yeah. They do all their own stuff over there. Yeah. So it was just a small herd that they were bringing in, but sometimes I'm trying to negotiate my little Prius through like, I don't know, 700 of them. It's really slow going. And one day I got kicked. Some cow kicked my car.
Yeah.
And I thought I could wash it off, but then I realized, no, she totally scratched it.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband just had to repair one of his signal lights because a cow kicked it. There's lots of cows on our road. Okay.
I've not had to fix a cow dent on any of my vehicles. But I have been kicked by a lot of cows. When you're branding cows, that happens. But they're calves, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I've been kicked by milk cows too, which is less fun. That can hurt.
I got kicked by a goat once.
Well, yeah, I've been kicked by goats.
She was on the milk stand, and I was cleaning her udder after she had given birth. And I made the mistake of trusting her, and I, came with a warm cloth, and I just kind of put my head over. And as soon as I touched her, she just wham. And she got me right on the eyebrow and, broke the skin. And then I had a big black eye. And we were living in Telegraph Creek, and I had to go into the, gas station convenience store one day. And the guy working in there, he goes, "What happened to your eye?" I'm like, "Oh, my goat kicked me." It sounds like such a bad story.
Right.
And he's like, "Okay." So then my husband said to me, "You got to wear sunglasses next time you go to town."
Yeah, right.
You're going to think I'm beating on you,
Yeah. I forgot to do the dishes. That's what happened.
Yeah, but I mean, a goat kicks you. You got to be down on the ground for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's that's
It's not like
that's
they're up.
true. It'd be like laying right next to a goat. If they're on the milk platform, though, that makes sense.
But
That's
my
funny.
farrier got kicked really bad one day. He was doing one of my mares.
Mm.
Everything was going fine. He'd done already, I think he was on the third foot. And he's working away and we're talking, and all of a sudden, wham, right in his face. And I was like, I thought, don't even take your hands off. I was afraid that his whole skull was crashed.
Yeah.
Luckily he was shocked, but he was okay. But I sold that horse before he had to come the next time. I was like, out of here. That's the end of that one.
My grandma said when she was like 10 or 11 years old, they had a draft horse and it had just gotten new shoes, and she was trying to move it and she pissed him off, and he just clomped his foot right down under her foot, just wham, slammed it. Yeah, and she couldn't get him off, she was punching him and yelling. And her dad had to come out and get the horse off her foot. And yeah, she had problems and like arthritis in her foot for the rest of her life because it just crushed her foot. Yeah.
It was
brutal.
Our goats used to always get in with the horses when they were eating their hay. And the horses were pretty tolerant of the goats, but then Merlin, my big Percheron, he moves really slow and he's very careful and he's a real gentleman. And he kept doing this, just moving his head, and it was an indicator, stay out of my space. But the goats were just dumb, pushy. And so he grabbed a goat by the neck in his mouth, and he picked it up and he flung it.
Yeah.
And she landed on her feet. And I saw the whole thing.
Wow.
And she landed on her feet and she just went, she screamed. It probably hurt like heck.
Yeah. It's probably scared the crap out of her too.
Totally terrified. And that was the end. They never came near again. But I was like, what? I never expected a horse to pick up another animal with its mouth.
Yeah, I've never seen that. That's wild. Well, we had Risto join us, and then we talked for a minute, and now Risto is just listening to us talk about rural stuff again.
Yeah. That's okay.
I could do it all day.
Yeah. So did you go through the whole Psalter with your family?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Have you maintained any kind of practice as far as like integrating the Psalms into your prayer life or into your devotionals or anything like that with your family? Or
not as structured as I would like. We read Psalms pretty much every day.
Nice.
There's no rhyme or reason right now.
Yeah.
I was reading about the early monastics in the British Isles, and all they carried with them was the Psalter and the Philokalia. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have Bibles,
Right. Yeah.
They just had the Psalms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's a deep well. The Psalms are an incredibly deep well. I didn't expect what I would find as we got into them. I think the Psalms are the most quoted Old Testament book in the New Testament. William Wilberforce, I think, he memorized Psalm 119 and would quote it as he was going to Parliament back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have written books about the Psalms. C.S. Lewis, and I mean, just tons of people have written books about the Psalms.
Yeah. In the canons, it says that in order to be a bishop, you have to have the Psalter memorized. Because they pray the entire Psalter once a week. And on average, a bishop had to be a monk for at least 10 years before they were made a bishop. So they would have the whole Psalter, you're hearing the whole thing every week. And a lot of times, like for 1 or 2 of those years, they were the ones who would have to chant it, and so they just learned it, just from exposure. But
So I'm just
well, and
wondering.
then when we met, or when we did the life of Father Roman Braga, he said that's how his mother taught them to read, was with the Psalter, in Church Slavonic, and he said she had the whole thing memorized. So she was Romanian, like simple villager. She had the whole Psalter memorized. So anyway,
In Slavonic, he said.
Yeah, in Church Slavonic, yeah, which was not her native language.
Yeah. I was just wondering, William, if you know, I think the Psalms are chanted also in the like the Jewish liturgy too, right? And I think they work their way through them on a regular basis and have them memorized, and not by number, according to Jacob. It's by the first line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Grizz says it's called the Psalter.
He said he got one as a gift, and he said he's read one of them. That's what so somebody asked him which translation, from the liturgy training publication. So I don't know that one.
Yep.
The one I use is from the Holy Transfiguration Monastery. Mundelean Psalter. Oh, interesting. That looks like let's see if this is the, well, I don't know if that's the one. Looks like he got a Catholic Psalter. Maybe not. Can't tell. I'll share it. Let me share the screen.
Bayes Psalm Book of 1640.
This is the one that I found when I searched what he said. Is this one that you have, Grizz? The Mundelean Psalter. Looks nice, but I don't know the Psalter. I'm not familiar with it. Liturgy of the Hours with psalms that are appointed for the chanting of the divine office. Yeah, this is a Roman Catholic prayer structure. Yeah, the Liturgy of the Hours. I mean, there is one for Orthodox too, but where it says Gregorian-based modes composed for the Psalter, that's where I'm saying it's Roman Catholic. So just a little different structure on when to pray what. But
Are for Orthodox monks, do they share some similarities in how they structure their life to Catholic monks? Specific. I have some familiarity with Benedictine monks, that follow the rule of Saint Benedict.
Let's see. I don't know much about the Catholic orders. I do know that there's a lot more orders in Roman Catholicism than there is in Orthodoxy. Orthodoxy doesn't have as many different traditions that they follow. It's kind of tied to, like,
they don't even have orders. They just have.
They don't have orders.
They have no orders. Are you Catholic, Christo?
No.
Okay. Yeah. No. Catholics have orders, and I don't know how their orders work, but it just appears to me like they're depending on who they were disciples of, which monk they were disciples, like St. Francis or St. Benedict.
Yeah, I think they have different rules and different focuses, is my understanding.
Yeah, they have different vows, right?
Yeah, not being a Catholic, so like
I don't really know either. If there's any Catholics in the chat, help us out.
Education focused than others. Others are more cloistered and focused on withdrawal and silence, and others are
poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it says there's the degrees of Eastern Orthodox monasticism. This is according to Wikipedia. Okay, I'll share this so I'm not just reading it. Here.
But I think Benedict was pre-schism, so I don't know if he's a saint in the Orthodox Church.
He is a saint in our church, yeah, and they do publish his book, The Monastic Rule.
Who?
I don't think so. There's a copy of it. Hold on. There's a book called The Monastic Rule. There's one published by St. Anthony's Greek Orthodox Monastery Press. But it's not the rule that they use currently for Orthodox monks, as far as I know. I think it's based on it, but I don't think it's directly like that. Anyway.
It says that we do have the great schema. I don't know what that is.
Yes. So that's like a higher order monk. You have to be a monk for a long time, and you have to be approved by your abbot and the bishop to be able to.
Oh, it's coming up here.
To receive the great schema.
Yeah.
So the monastic habit is same throughout the Eastern Church with slight regional variations, and it is both the same for both monks and nuns. Each successive grade is given a portion of the habit, the full habit being worn only by those in the highest grade, known for that reason as the great schema or great habit. A person may enter any monastery of one's choice, but after being accepted by the abbot or abbess and making vows, one may not move from place to place without the blessing of one's ecclesiastical superior. This satisfies the principle of stability of place important to monasticism. One becomes a monk or nun by being tonsured, a rite that only a priest can perform. This is typically done by the abbot. The priest tonsuring a monk or nun must be tonsured into the same or greater degree of monasticism that he is tonsuring another into. In other words, only a hiero monk who has been tonsured into the great schema, a hiero monk is a priest monk, who has been tonsured into the great schema may himself tonsure a schema monk. A bishop, however, may tonsure into any rank regardless of his own. On rare occasions, a bishop will allow a priest to tonsure a monk or nun into any rank. Orthodox monks are addressed as father, as are priests and deacons in the Orthodox Church. When conversing among themselves, monks in some places may address one another as brother. Novices are most often referred to as brother, though at some places, e.g. on Mount Athos, novices are addressed as father. Among the Greeks, old monks are often called geranda, or elder, out of respect for their dedication. In the Slavic tradition, the title of elder, starets, is normally reserved for those who are of an advanced spiritual life and who serve as guides for others. Nuns who have been tonsured to the Stavrofor or higher are addressed as mother. Novice and Rossophore nuns are addressed as sister. Nuns live ascetic lives that are identical to those of their male counterparts and are therefore also called monachi, the feminine plural of monachos. Their community is likewise called a monastery. So something else is that the actual hermit monks are very rare. There aren't many of them. Most monks live in communities. And I think that's probably the biggest difference. And then the schema monks are like, they live lives dedicated to prayer, and they are mostly hidden and not talked to, and they don't talk to anybody, but they come out for like certain services. Like they'll come out for Pascha and they'll come out for others. I'll pull up a picture of a schema monk. Whoops. I'll put a comma in there. But the schema monks, these robes are pretty cool. So that's the full schema habit of a schema monk. Like I said, it's rare to see them out. They don't come out very often.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty, but like I said, they do come out for services. They'll participate in some of the high holy days. There's some female schema monks, some nuns.
Mm-hmm.
So those are people who have been monks or nuns for most of their lives and have learned how to pray at very deep or very high levels, depending on how you say it. And they're praying for the world.
Yeah.
So schema monks.
Do Orthodox monks, are any of them involved in industry, making things like, there's Catholic monks that run breweries?
Yes. Yeah, they definitely, that goes all the way back to St. Anthony the Great. He was praying and he was having a hard time and kind of struggling. And there was an angel that came, and the angel would make a basket for a while and then would put it down and stand up and pray for a while and then put it down and then sit down and start making the basket again, and was praying the whole time. But excuse me. But so yeah, it's normal for a monk to have a prayer rule, but then also to have a certain number of hours every day that are labors around the monastery. And some of them are working on the monastery, just taking care of, there's cooks and, the people who clean and, take care of the monastery itself. But then there's also, monks who make prayer ropes that they sell, or the iconographers that sell icons. There are monks, like I just bought some honey from a monastery. There are monks who make soap. There are monks who make beard oil. There are monks who, they do translations of scriptures, or they do printings of books and publishing. They have publishing companies and stuff like that where you can buy books from the monastery. So yeah, they're definitely involved in that. I mean, they have to maintain, they have to pay the way for these monks to live there somehow. And it also is part of the tradition to have a vocation while you're a monk, so that you're not just praying, because no one can really do that. You go crazy. Except the schema monks. The schema monks are not involved in those kind of activities. The schema monks are just praying. Yep, they take care of the bees too. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I just got some honey from Jordanville Monastery, and it was expensive, but it's phenomenal. One thing that was really cool, I saw an interview with the monk who takes care of the bees at Jordanville, and he said he never wears any bee equipment. Like, he never uses any kind of protective equipment. He just smokes them. And he said sometimes when you open the hive, they don't want to see you that day, and they make it very clear. So he said, I just leave them alone. I go away and just go do my prayers, come back the next day, and then we check again. And so he's like, and they don't use any chemicals. So they lose a lot of bees and they lose hives, but he said, but we don't want any kind of chemicals in our honey. So it's like pure, unfiltered, unpasteurized honey. And it's so good. And yes, Joy, they tie, a lot of them make prayer ropes. That's one of the things they do a lot.
Did you mention that they also do iconography?
Yes, there are monk iconographers. Yeah. And I did mention it, but we can mention it again.
I missed it. I had to
yeah,
go.
it's all right.
Deal with my dog.
Yeah, so I'll share my screen again. This one. Okay. So yeah, this is a monastery down in Arizona, St. Paisius. This is actually a female monastery, a nunnery, and they specialize in prayer ropes, and so they make all different kinds. The original traditional ones are wool, but other people have started using satin, or they use, some people they use wood ones, or, as you can see, there's a lot of different materials that they use to make them now. But yeah, these are all made by hand. And what's nice is when you buy one of these from a monastery, you have a nun who's making them, and she's sitting there praying the whole time that she's making them.
Yeah.
So it's imbued with the holiness of the place of the monastery, imbued with the prayerfulness of the nun who's making it for you. So it's quite lovely.
I actually get my candles from a hermitage not far from here.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
There's 3 monks living there.
And
they also built the iconostasis for the mission that I got baptized at.
Oh, wow.
And do little things like that. So that's where all the tapers come from. And
yeah, I didn't mention that. They do make candles. They make there's frequently like a carpentry shop at a lot of monasteries where they make kind of liturgical items, chairs, and
also
icon stands,
Really?
reader stands, iconostases, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I got some candles when I was in Chicago at a deli. I think they were some sort of Eastern European deli, and it was around the time of the year that they were selling prayer candles.
Oh, yeah.
This
Yeah,
is my
it's oh, go ahead.
my icon that one of those monks wrote for me.
Wow.
It was a gift from my sponsors when I got baptized, Saint Seraphim.
Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, my
Isn't it
goodness.
gorgeous?
Yes, that's such a beautiful icon. Wow,
Yeah.
I've never seen that. That's really well. Of course, I know it's original. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. He asked me what one I wanted, and I sent him one that I had picked out on the internet, and it was Saint Seraphim and his bear, and they were all snugged up together.
Oh
And he
yeah,
said, I can't do you that one, Shari, but I'll do you one
yeah.
that you'll like. And
Oh,
he
nice.
did me this one,
That's
and
beautiful.
it's very it's very soft and very nice. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
We
We have
have
a
yet
big
to-
icon of Saint Seraphim in our church
Mhm.
that everyone venerates. It's on one of the veneration stands. It's a big one. It's nice.
Yeah, we have yet to do Saint Seraphim. Actually, I have a book from a friend of mine that I actually have to return to her, and I still haven't read it.
Ah,
But it's called Saint Seraphim's Seraphim, and it's about a. Let me see. Oh, where do I have it? I don't know what it is. I can't go get it, but it's about a woman who was a nun, but she was like a holy fool at a monastery because he began a monastery. Saint Seraphim did, or I think he was abbot there,
mhm.
and she was his, seraphim. He was his little wise person. I have to read it.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, Cassandra. The closest monasteries to us are like 12-hour drives. It's a long. It makes it feel like a pilgrimage for sure. It's
Well,
not like let's go visit on the weekend. It's a
I
commitment.
can't go to the hermitage. It's a hermitage, so I can't go there.
Right.
Nobody goes there actually, but yeah, they do stuff. You can email them and yeah.
Actually, we do have one monastery in Denver. It's actually a really cool story. There's only one monk who lives there, and it's in a house in a wealthy neighborhood
One
in
month.
Denver.
One
Yeah.
month?
Yeah, he runs it, and he's a priest monk there, and he does services all the time. And it's St. George's Monastery, and St. George is my patron saint. He actually comes. He was trained as a saint, or I mean, he was trained as a monk, and I anyway, I won't. He was trained as a monk on the Isle of Patmos, which is where Saint John the Revelator received the Book of Revelation, received the Apocalypse, and there's been a monastery there ever since. And so he was from that monastery and brings that tradition, and just being around him, it's like one of the few experiences I've had where it was like just clear that I was with a holy person.
Yeah.
And it was really powerful. It's a very beautiful experience. I got to visit him, and I got to go there for St. George's name day 2 years ago. I went and celebrated there, and got to venerate a relic of St. George that he has there. And,
Thank you very much, Upcycle.
Thank you, Upcycle. God bless you.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before. I've been thinking about doing a little stay in a monastery somewhere, but I haven't decided yet where I want to go. I have to think about it.
Oh, I love out of all the monasteries I've been to, my favorite one is the women's monastery near in Arizona.
Hmm.
Unbelievable.
I have
Just
a friend,
unbelievable.
a friend um, that I used to talk to a lot on the Discord. She's Swedish, and she went to Serbia. Yeah, she stayed in the Serbian monastery for a time. She also went to Mull Monastery, did a few retreats there.
Mm.
Then she went to Serbia, and yeah, she loved it. She loved it a lot.
Yeah. I do find it, I mean, I've been to monasteries where they just do the services in Greek, and then I've been to a monastery where they do the services in English and Russian, and then I've been to a monastery where they just do it in English. And I do have to say, like, the English one is kind of, it's easier to pray for me because I can follow along. I don't have to have it in my own language, but it helps, you know. I mean, it's still very prayerful when it's in a different language, but it's I find it easier for me to pay attention when it's in my language.
Mhm.
Otherwise, my mind just kind of. But that's my lack of prayerful mindfulness. So I have to take whatever I have to cheat however I can.
Well, I think there's something. Again, I think there's something about having it in your own language, that's where the Psalms are so powerful and meaningful to me. Is not just as a separate thing out here that you listen to or read, but something that you enter into that stream. You become a part of that. You praying the Psalms, because that wasn't part of the tradition I grew up in, praying the Psalms.
Mm-hmm.
Jedediah, miss you.
Yeah, same with me. I was introduced to it only through Orthodoxy, and I love it. I love the practice of praying the Psalms. It's been during fasting seasons, I usually pray the hours. So 3rd hour, 6th hour, 9th hour, and and then the 1st hour, and each of those. So 1st hour is 6 a.m., 3rd hour is 9 a.m., 6th hour is 12 p.m., and 9th hour is 3 p.m. So at those times, there are 3 psalms that we pray at each of those times. And it really, man, I love it. I don't have the discipline to do it all year long. I probably should, but at least during like Nativity Fast and Great Lent, I do that. And man, I really enjoy it because it doesn't take long. It only takes like 10 or 15 minutes to just go and pray the 3 psalms.
Make that.
But it
Yeah.
really just helps me. Like,
I'm going to have to try that this year. I've never done that. I'd like to try it.
It's really nice. So this is where, so I will share this as well, because this is a really great resource to know about. Let me pull it up first.
I don't think I've ever experienced that psalm singing Reformed services.
I have not either.
Yeah, there's some smaller, more conservative Reformed denominations that I think are Psalms only for their music or worship in the church. So actually, I just got together with a friend of mine who is part of one of those churches. He's a pastor in one of those churches. And he's a former student of mine. I taught for a few years. So it's fun to connect with him, but they use Psalms exclusively, I think, or at least almost entirely exclusively. It was we actually had this weird incident like a year ago. It was a God incident where we were reading through the Psalms with our family, and there was one of them that kind of was meaningful, kind of stuck with me. So we read that a couple days in a row. And then I talked to him later that week, and he was just talking about some life struggles he was having. And I felt like, well, it sounded like the Psalm I was reading. And I was like, well, should I tell him about this Psalm that I was reading? And I felt like, no, that's I don't want to be preachy. Like, oh, you're struggling. Here's a Bible verse for you.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, I'll tell him. So I told him that psalm. I can't remember if I read it or I sent it to him. I messaged it to him. And I had this weird thought in my head. I know they sang the psalms, and I was like, well, what if they sing that psalm tomorrow morning, Sunday, for their service? And he messages me Sunday that next day. He's like, we sang that psalm for our service. And they plan it like a year ahead of time or whatever. So it was just cool to see like God orchestrate that for him.
That's beautiful.
Some of the Reformed traditions are exclusively psalm scripture singing, unaccompanied by instruments. Cool.
Nice.
You did not know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Yeah, if you start praying the Psalms, you'll start crying at random times. Yes. And what's wild too is that there'll be a Psalm that you've read 100 times or 200 times or 300 times, and all of a sudden you're reading it and one phrase it just hits you right in the heart.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You just have these certain phrases. I mean, there's this little prayer that we say before our meals is so tiny, and it's just a little quote of a little part of a psalm. It's just, the poor shall eat and be filled, they that seek the Lord shall praise him, their heart shall live forever and ever. I had said it many, many times, and then I said it right after I lost a loved one, and it was like saying it for the first time. It was just like, the poor shall eat and be filled, they that seek the Lord shall praise him, and their heart shall live forever and ever. And it was just like, I could hardly finish the prayer. It's one of those things you can't explain.
I have to say, Graham's version of Psalm 90 was just amazing.
Yes, I loved that.
And Joseph was happy about that. Jacob was happy about that. I didn't hear from Kessie on that, but because he really dug into the Hebrew on that psalm. It was really great.
So let me share this little site. So this site, I'll go to the main site. It's like liturgy.io, I think, is the main part. Liturgy. But if I try to bring that up, it wouldn't.
Is that the top there?
Oh, yeah, you can't see it. So liturgy.io, yeah, this is the main site. So this is really cool because they have different traditions over here. So they have Eastern Orthodox services, Anglican services, House Lectionary, today's readings, Evangelical, Lutheran, Reformed, Roman Catholic. It's all here. Cool. Of course, I go to Eastern Orthodox services, and in there, what's really nice, and then I use New Calendar. So no New Calendar, no lectionary. And it automatically comes up to the prayers that you should be praying right now, Vespers. But if you want to go to the other parts of the day, they have the morning liturgy, and then they have first hour or third hour, sixth hour, ninth hour. So first hour, there's just a short prayer at the beginning. This is called the Trisagion, and this is like the beginning of all of our prayers. And then it has the 3 Psalms that you read. So Psalm 5, Psalm 89, and Psalm 100. And these are all according to the Septuagint numbering. But if you're using a different, if you're using like the evangelical services are all in the King James version, and etc. So it's tied to whatever, and actually it's using the King James version translation in this, but it's using the old numbering. But anyway, so it just leads you, it gives you the whole service. And I just read through that really quick at work. I printed all out at work, and I just use these.
Corey's asking, it's called liturgy.io, Corey.
Yes.
Right at the top there.
Liturgy.io. This is great. And it has all the different traditions, and it's automatically set up to come to right to what you should be praying at that time, but you can also pick through the different ones on the left-hand side. And you can go to different dates, but this follows the liturgical calendar. It has new calendar, it has old calendar for Orthodox. If you're Orthodox, you know what that means. So anyway,
that's awesome, Jeremy.
It's got everything you need. Yeah, it's really great.
I'm going to bookmark it.
Yes.
Well,
so this is what I used for a long time.
That's where
the filter that I use.
And I bet almost all those tie into the Psalms. That's where going through the Psalms was so eye-opening for me, just to see how the Psalms have basically been the lungs of God's people for so long.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
think, you know,
Yes.
I grew up Protestant evangelical, probably have a lot of leanings in that direction still, but I think so much was lost when there was a move away from the Psalms.
Well,
Yeah.
apparently, according to Jedediah, there are a lot of churches that still practice that. I just wasn't aware because I don't remember that in the Plymouth Brethren, to be
Yeah,
honest.
probably a small percent if I had to guess these days.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what I was going to show you is like the first hour is, and it's always the same three Psalms: Psalm 5, Psalm 89, Psalm 100. And if you go to like the third hour, it's always the same three Psalms. It's Psalm 16, Psalm 24, Psalm 50.
Oh, you can get those memorized then.
Exactly. Psalm 6th hour is always the same three Psalms: Psalm 53,
Wow.
54, and Psalm 90. And then the 9th hour is always the same three. It's 83, 84, and 85. So yeah, once you get the numbering, then but this has all of the wording, has it all, and it has the introductory prayers, which is nice as well if you don't
Bye,
have those
Chris.
numbers.
Thanks for joining us.
Anyway.
Well, and I've been
And-
thinking, like, kind of my recommendation maybe for people of how to approach the Psalms would be, like, I think just going through them all to kind of get a lay of the land. But then I think God has you at different places in your life, or you have yourself at different places in your life, and maybe that's good, maybe it's not so good, but the Psalms hit you in different ways. And like you said, there's a phrase from one that might just jump out at you. I think there's something to be said for knowing the Psalms well enough to put together a few. It's like, here's where I'm at, you know, these 3 or 4 Psalms, praying through these are the prayers I need to be praying right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the first prayer rule I was ever given was Psalm 3 in the morning and Psalm 4 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really
I
great.
never got that prayer rule.
Well, my priest took it easy on me. He just wanted me to be consistent. He's like, let's not overwhelm you. I know you have a hard time with that. So let's just do something small. I was like, okay, great. So it didn't last long, but it did help me get in the habit. That was good.
Well, the Our Father's pretty short.
Yes. Yeah.
What I mean, what do they call that prayer in Orthodoxy?
It's
Father.
the Our Father. Yeah. We say it as part of our Trisagion prayers. So we have a set of 3 prayers that we kind of start
Mhm.
all of our prayers with, and that's one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
short, but deep and challenging.
The Trisagion
Oh
prayer
yeah.
didn't take me very long to learn, actually. And
What's
then
that, Shari?
the Trisagion prayer didn't take me long to learn,
Yeah.
like off by heart, and like the 3 together and then the Our
Mhm.
Father. But Grizz said something up here. Where was it now? About I don't know where it was. Oh, here. It's amazing you can think things that you can't say aloud without your voice breaking. Um,
Mm,
one of the things I have a lot of trouble with without I can't cry is if I'm singing to the Lord.
mm,
I can't do it without crying.
mm.
So lots of times I start and then I'm like to zip it.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. And I mean, I can do it at home by myself, but if I'm in a congregation of people, that's what gets me. It's the communal feeling of everybody together singing this. It's so powerful to me. I can't participate. I have to stop. I'll just fall apart, like
Mm,
literally fall apart.
mm.
I can't handle it at all. don't know what that is, but yeah. Oh,
Well,
interesting.
there's a part in the Divine Liturgy where we're saying the Lord's Prayer. It's right toward the end. But in our parish, about once a month, our priest comes out and he has all of the different native language speakers speak it in their native language. And last Sunday that we did that, we had 13 native languages in our parish. It was so beautiful. You know, it's like Slavonic and Romanian and Russian and Serbian and Korean and Spanish and French and Portuguese. And it was unbelievable.
It's very moving.
Yeah, it is. It's really great.
Corey, you did that walking pilgrimage with Ted. He talked about that when we were doing Dante, and he did it that one year. 118 Psalms in 2 days. That's very nice.
So I have something that's probably a prideful desire, but I was inspired by the Ethiopians. I saw this video of Ethiopians on Pascha, and they would walk for days to get to the church and celebrate Pascha, or actually they would get there in time to celebrate
Have you ever
Holy Week.
seen them climb those cliffs to those churches up there?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's
Yeah.
no way in heck.
Yeah.
Get me up
So
there.
my church is like 30 miles away, and I don't know if this will be the year, but I probably should make it the year where I
This
want to
is
walk
something.
to church for Pascha. I think that'd be awesome. I want to
This
do
is
that.
something I've thought about because there's something in us. Okay, for years, I live on a highway that is a dead end, and it's almost 500 kilometers to the end of this highway. And at the end of it is the ocean. You drop right down to sea level. It's a 20% grade, the whole hill. It's like, quite famous actually, in these parts. And you go from like high semi-arid plateau to rainforest. And I have wanted to walk that, like a deep, deep desire to walk that, like ever since we moved here. My kids were little, and I just knew there's no way I'm going to ever walk to Bella Coola with little kids.
Yeah.
And there's an old trail that First Nations used to use. It was called the Grease Trail, because they would trade bear grease and stuff and other things, I don't think I would ever want to do it though, because it's through the wilderness, and it's not really a kept trail. It's mapped out, but yeah.
Right.
But
Not maintained.
but there's some, so this was before I knew anything about pilgrimages. But it was part of the urge to do that. Felt like if I do that, I'll be healed. That's what I thought. Because I was just in a place in my life that I needed healing. And there's something very, like, even Aboriginal people in Australia, they do walkabout, right? They just go on these like long pilgrimages, and it's a part of a transformational phase. When they come back, they're different. And fairy tales have this same theme of, going out on a journey, going into the dark woods, coming out a different person, things like that. There's something very human about wanting to take a long walk. Isn't that interesting? Like, don't you find that fascinating?
Yeah.
And then I read this book. I just want to say this. I read this book about this man. It was a fictional story. And it was one of the most moving books I've ever read. And he had he was an elderly guy. Him and his wife were retired. Life was monotonous. Their marriage was just, because they weren't really talking, communicating. But they were together, and they planned to die together. But it was just, And he, at one point, had a business, and he had a woman that worked for him as his secretary. And after he closed his business and retired, they lost touch. And she wrote him a letter to tell him that she was in a nursing home and she was dying of cancer. And the letter moved him so much because there were things that he felt like he needed to tell her that were just not necessarily directly about their relationship, or they'd never done anything wrong. But he just wanted to, it was like a confession that he needed to make, of sorts. And he wrote her this long letter, and then he walked to the mailbox and it's an English town in England. He walks to the mailbox and he's just dressed in his shorts and he's got these like low, deck shoes on or something. And he thinks, no, I'm going to go to the next mailbox and mail it. And he gets to that one and then he goes, no, I'm going to go to the next one. And pretty soon he finds himself outside of town. And he goes, I'm going to go to the next town and mail it. And it's in the direction of where she is. And then he just starts walking, right? And he gets to a hotel. His shoes are just trashed. He's exhausted. He's got sores on his feet. He calls his wife. She's like, where the hell are you? He's like, I'm going to bring this letter to her. I have to do it. And the whole story is about this man who's bringing her this letter. And people hear about it and they start joining him, and they all have different reasons for walking. And he doesn't even talk to them. They just follow him, right? It's such, like, as you can see, I've thought a lot about this because I have wanted to walk 500 kilometers to the ocean for healing's sake before I even knew anything about pilgrimages or anything, So anyway, sorry, Corey got me on a tangent.
300 miles for the non-Freemasonic measuring units, if you prefer that. If you prefer the non-Mason units. No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to make light. That is a beautiful story, and I've been thinking about like trying to. I think I'm going to invite all my godsons to walk with me. It's about a 12-hour walk, and we could just pray the Psalms as we were walking and then get to Pascha, because Pascha's at our Pascha service starts at 10 p.m. So we'd have to leave, that morning and just walk all day basically and get there and then celebrate Pascha. I think it'd be amazing.
I rode my horse to town 50 kilometers one year.
That's a long horse ride.
With all the people from Nehemiah. And they actually, so traditionally speaking, when it was Stampede weekend in Williams Lake, all the people would go to town from Nehemiah, and it's about 300 kilometers. And they went with wagons and horses. And I don't know how long ago it was, 10 years or something. This young guy, he ended up being chief for a while. Him and his wife decided to revive it because it had just kind of gone by the wayside as a tradition, with the elders, like with the elders who had actually done that trip as kids.
Yeah.
And they camped out all along the way, and they went the way the elders took,
Wow.
And they always camp out every year at the end of our road and it's the last night before they go to town. They do that last 50 kilometers.
So that's a fun party.
And so I joined up with them and rode in with my sister.
That's fun.
1 year. It was really great.
They have reenactments here of pioneers coming with handcarts, where you go out onto the handcart trail, and they chunk a bunch of stuff into a handcart, and then the kids are trying to push it and pull it, and you're going over rocks, and we did one time where it was like you just basically do 10 miles a day for 2 days, and by the end of that second day you are done. you're fried. But
they do it with all the kids, and
that's cool.
Yeah, and actual wagons and draft horses and horses, and there's It's usually a pretty good group. There's sometimes close to 100 people traveling.
Well, I'm gonna head out. It was nice talking.
Thanks for joining us,
Thanks for
Risto.
joining us, Risto.
It was
Have a
nice
good
to see
evening.
you again. You
You
too.
ask good questions. So,
And you have to join the math cult. I think I'm going to start it. So
we'll talk about it. Is it the Euclid math cult or the Pythagoras math cult?
No, Euclid.
All right, sound good. Yeah, we talked about Euclid some on my stream. He's studying Euclid with his kids, and I had just recently learned that Lincoln actually went into the forest and lived for 3 years, if I remember correctly, 2 or 3 years studying Euclid, which is like the Greek geometry, where he did all the proofs. And Lincoln went out because he thought in order to be a good attorney, he needed to learn logic. And so he actually studied Euclid so much that he had it memorized so that you could show him a figure and he could tell you the proof.
Wow.
That went with that figure. Yeah, because he felt like that was necessary to be a good attorney. There may be an esoteric element to it too, but the account I read of Lincoln studying Euclid did not get into the esoteric side of it.
I just wanted to say to Corey, I was FaceTiming with my daughter one day. She lives in a medieval village on the Rhine, and there's a pilgrim way through that village that goes all the way to Portugal. And it's called Sankt Jakobsweg, I think. And her neighbor yelled, her window was open, and yelled from the alley up. And so my daughter leaned out the window and had the camera pointing down because she thought, because I know her neighbor. And there was 2 pilgrims and they were looking for a place for the night. And so my daughter put them up. She goes, that's a spare bedroom. Come on in. And they still do it like that in Europe. They don't book anything and they don't pay. They just ask in the village. Isn't that cool?
You're killing me. You're killing me. We're such barbarians here. It's not even funny.
It's not Romania or some Eastern European country, but where you would expect that. But this is like very modern, very Mom. And then she goes, I gotta go, Mom. There's some pilgrims coming in.
Oh man, that's so beautiful. That's so good.
I know.
Oh, that's so
sad. And when she told me that because we walked that along the Rhine to take the dog and stuff, she goes, Mom, this is a pilgrimage way, right? And I'm like, no, where does it go? Portugal. I'm like, what? Let's do it.
Wow.
There's so many of them. And Rupert Sheldrake has revived the art of pilgrimage in England. And they're opening up new pilgrim ways all the time. So
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. There used to be a Trappist monk monastery in the mountains above where I live, and unfortunately they sold it to a private company before we could get in touch with them because we wanted to buy it and keep it, turn it into an Orthodox monastery. Because
Martin Shaw was going to buy one. I don't know if he did.
The Catholic Church was selling it and we wanted to buy it, but we got there too late. They had already sold it. It's kind of a bummer.
The iconographer Aidan Hart?
Yeah.
Well, he painted the inside of a church full of icon, like it's just covered. It's a small chapel at this monastery in England. And because Martin wrote it in his Substack and showed photos, and Aidan said, I want to show you something. And he took him there and it was for sale because they had to give it up. And he just didn't want the church to fall into the wrong hands. Right? Because all of his iconography is in there.
Yeah, right.
And Martin was thinking about it. I don't know if he's done anything about it. I kind of stopped reading his Substack when I went to Switzerland And then I got so behind, I felt intimidated to catch up.
To try to catch up, yeah.
And now I'm even further behind. So now I'm starting again. I'm just going through them all. They're so wonderful.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
read his.
Yeah, well, he actually does the voiceover for it. Like you
Yeah,
can listen to Martin, you know,
yeah,
talking.
I love it.
It's really, really beautiful. Yeah. And yes, Corey, it's Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake, he's really into pilgrimages, sacred places, and all that kind of thing. So, and yeah, North America, I just like, I have to ask, like, what is a pilgrimage? Like, aren't many pilgrimages destinations to holy places, right?
Mhm.
And there are many holy places along the way, whether they're churches or holy wells or, you know, grave sites or whatever the case might be. And we just don't have those here.
No.
Not that I know of.
No. I mean, we have monasteries and historical markers like along the Oregon Trail, or, you know, there are people who do that. I've met people who travel the Oregon Trail, or they travel like the Pioneer Trek trail and kind of look at the historical spots along the way. I think that's the closest we probably have that I can think of where, you know, and I know some people like follow the Donner Trail, like the Donner Party as well.
Well, here's the thing. I mean,
Out
we
of
haven't
memory.
talked about Saint Seraphim yet, but I do know this. Saint Seraphim, actually, because he couldn't pilgrimage, he did a pilgrimage way in the woods, and he would put stations of different icons in the woods.
Yeah.
And then he would pilgrimage to them. And that was his way of doing pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And which is also why I still haven't put him out there, Jeremy.
That's right.
I am so torn up. I got to get over it. This must be my motherly instinct, because I am so torn up about leaving him alone in the woods. You have no idea. Like, it's really hard for me.
It's kind of where he loves being there, though. Like,
I
he would live
know.
as a hermit on an island in the woods.
And here's the thing. Okay.
Maybe he'll have a bear. Maybe he'll have a bear that comes along and like sets up shop. You might invite a bear with your Saint Seraphim icon. I don't know.
Good night, Joy. Sleep well.
Good night, Joy. God bless you.
Well, here's the thing. Saint Seraphim wants to be out there because he told me that already. I'm like, are you sure? It's gonna be winter. And what if I can't get out?
Kneeling on a rock for a year. He can handle it.
I know.
That's what I love about Saint Seraphim is like every icon you see, he's so gentle, he's so soft, and he's so like, you know, just a very, you can tell he's just a very gentle soul. But yet he did these extreme acts of asceticism. You know, like I said, kneeling on a rock for a year and praying. Like
Seraphim of Seraph is
of Seraph, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've showed this before, but because it's definitely going out this week. This is the last week of any good weather, but this is the thing. My husband made me, and Paul Kingsnorth told me, get it out there. Okay, Corey. So here's the thing. We were talking about holy wells, and in the comment section of Paul Kingsnorth's Substack, and I'm like, you know, he had a picture of this holy well site, and it was just in the woods, and it was kind of a wet spot. And I said, geez, you know, that looks like a place on my property, because we just have water bubbling out of the ground and it's new. And I said, but we don't have holy wells here. And he goes, somebody's got to start one.
There you go.
And I went, oh. And then it dawned on me because this icon here, Brother Moses just, he put a piece of paper and shellacked it and gave it to me while I was waiting for the one that I showed you before.
Yeah.
And then I got that one, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I don't need, all these icons of Saint Seraphim. And then he said to me, put me in the woods. And I'm like, okay. And so I sat on it for a long time. And then one day I went out and I got the wood, and, I'm like, I said to my husband, how do I make this? And he goes, well, you could do this and this. And then in the end, he just made it. Right. And it's been sitting here forever. And so when Paul Kingsnorth said to me, somebody's got to start a holy well. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's exactly, because I kept thinking when St. Seraphim said, I put me in the woods, like, where does he want to go? And this was before I was reading the Holy Wells thing. And I thought, oh, he wants to be where that water is.
Yeah.
And that's also the spot on our property that has the oldest trees. Like we've got like 300-year-old Douglas firs growing back there. And I'm like, so anyways, I've been making way too many excuses about this, Jeremy. It's just terrible.
I can't wait to see a picture. I want to get it out. And then I'm going to come visit you, and I'm going to pray to Saint Seraphim at that spot. And you should see if you could get one of those monks to come and bless your well, or a priest or someone to come. To come and bless your well.
And then, okay, so here's the thing. So I go to the church that took me in as a catechumen for the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before I was reading Paul Kingsnorth's Holy Wells thing, or that even came up. And I went to the church, and I'd already had the thought St. Seraphim wanted to be in the woods. And this lady that goes to that church, she's been really great to me and sent me lots of things to get my prayer corner set up and stuff. And I said, can I ask you a question? I said, because I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but, St. Seraphim wants to be in the woods. And so I was thinking I could, build a thing to protect the icon, and I could put it in the woods. Would that, how would that be okay? She goes, Shari, do you know anything about St. Seraphim? I said, no, not really. She goes, St. Seraphim had a pilgrimage with icons in the woods. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking I could pilgrimage to it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because it's way in the back end of my property and it's not easy to get to.
Yeah.
Anyway, the whole thing is very big, but it almost feels like, I'm just being super honest, it feels like too big. I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of it, Jeremy. That's, if I'm really honest, I'm afraid of it because I don't know what's going to happen if I do it. Anyway, there it is. Confession.
It's an invitation. Right? It's an invitation.
It is. It's an invitation to another transformative experience that I don't know if I'm ready for. But
we don't get to pick that.
Apparently not. It's driving me insane, Jeremy. It's driving me.
He's already picked you, right?
It's picked me.
The stone is rolling already.
Yeah.
The stone is cut. The stone has been cut from the mountain without
And
hands.
I'm fighting it. And that's been my whole relationship with God over the years. God's like, all right, it's time to do this now. And I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I'll come drink water out of your well.
Mm-hmm.
Once you set up your icon and your pilgrimage.
That. Oh, there's Corey. Corey!
Hey, there's Corey. Hello, hello.
You were talking about too much stuff that's too relevant for me to not come on.
Good.
Come on, but hi.
I had a couple of candles go out. I got to light them up. Light some more.
Yeah.
If you do that, I'll find a way to get up there, and I have people who will go with me.
Really?
It's got to happen.
That's even more terrifying.
There's a couple of things happening right now that I can't really talk about. That the same sort of thing is happening. It's not exactly the same, but there's terrifying things happening that feel like they're supposed to happen. And they're
This feels like that too. Like I didn't even know. And then well, I'm not going to say it out loud here, but I'll tell you later. There's something else. There's another thing to it. But, it's like when things like this happen, it's the same feeling I had when I heard the little voice that said, have you told Shelley what you've noticed about Nathan? On the Discord, Nathan and Shelley Woods, who are now married and have 2 children and 1 on the way. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, no, that's craziness, right? And then it turns out, Corey, that Nathan, the day that I heard that voice, Nathan had gone to, what's that saint's name? I never remember.
Xenia.
Xenia.
Yeah.
And prayed for a wife. And she was a holy fool. And she wanted me to be one. I'm like, that's ridiculous. And for a week I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not. And finally she wouldn't, it wouldn't stop. So I did it. And Nathan never told me that until after they got married. And he goes, Shari, there's something I think you should know. And when he told me that, I was like, what? I just, it's like crazy.
That is crazy.
And that's why I'm afraid.
Sorry. I wouldn't believe you unless I've been experiencing similar things over the past couple months. But like, it's insane. Like the stuff that happens when you just are willing to
do crazy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a surrender, right? It's like when you just surrender and you go, not my will, but thy will be done, Lord. I mean, that's why
This is helping me right now. Just so
what's
you know.
that?
This is helping me.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. No, glory to God. Glory
to
God. No, I think there's I feel a similar push with starting to do more videos on my YouTube channel of like just things that I need to tell, that I just need to be out. The stories that need to be shared, stories from people in my life, and then things that I've learned along the way, and it's mainly like I don't even know why. I don't know why. It's just, but there's this pressure that's building up in me. And like, you gonna do that video? Yes, you're gonna do that. Hey, here's some. You should do this video. You should do that. And I was like, okay.
Well, I mean, just doing this. Like I told you, Jeremy, I'm laying in the guest room of my daughter's house in Switzerland, and I'm like, I should do Lives of the Saints. Yeah. That didn't feel like my idea. And then I'm like, okay, so who should I do it with? Jeremy. Like I've seen Jeremy on a couple of live streams.
Yeah, we barely knew each other when you asked me.
Yeah.
How do you learn how to discern? This is a sidetrack, but this is what we're trying to figure out because we're new to this. We're new to crazy shit. How do you figure out what kind of voice it is that's telling you this stuff? I can't figure out like what's my selfish desire and what's actual.
Well, just trust yourself, and if it's real, it keeps coming back. It keeps annoying you, or it keeps coming back, or different people say things.
That's what I thought when I got the word about Nathan and Shelley. I'm like, You're making shit up, Shari. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually
think it's
said
wise
when
to
I heard
destruct
it,
yourself.
yeah, like the day I heard it, it was like out of nowhere, Corey. That was the one thing about it. It was out of nowhere. I was vacuuming in my living room, wasn't even thinking about Shelley and Nathan. And then boom, and I went, F that out loud. Just shutting myself down, right? Because I'm like, screw you. You don't be ridiculous. You don't even know. You don't know these people. This is an online thing. Like, you know. So, oh, there's
Yeah.
So
Well, and I would say this too. So if you so something I've noticed, like, okay, just for today, like today's saints, Saint Menas of Egypt. The reason we're sharing Saint Menas of Egypt is because yesterday Shari texted me and said, "Hey, have you figured out which saints we're going to talk about yet?" And I was just sitting there with my wife, like we were both sitting in our chair, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, no, I haven't even thought about it." And I turned to my wife. I'm like, "Tomorrow's my saint show. I haven't even thought about who I should talk about." And she just immediately goes, Saint Menas, the Wonder Worker. And I was like,
Yeah.
really? She goes, I said, why? She goes, he's so great. And she's like, and I think he's celebrated soon. You should talk to him. You should talk about him.
of course,
So it's like, to me, it's like, it's not from, like, that's not from me.
Mhm.
Right.
You have to listen
It's just
to it.
this genuine, like, instant response that she gave me. It was like, well, clearly we have to talk about Saint Menas of Egypt.
Mhm.
And why? I still don't know. I mean, he has a beautiful story, but these
And
things,
you may never
yeah, I
know.
may never know. There may be some lurker who heard his story and now is going to go be a saint. Like, who knows? We don't, like, these things sometimes take a lot of time to unravel or unroll.
I'm sorry to say that I haven't watched any full episodes. I only get here late at night when you guys are starting to talk. But have you done one on Saint Herman of Alaska?
Not yet.
No, we have not done Saint Herman of Alaska yet.
Well, maybe it's your sign that he should be next.
There we go. All right.
Last
Yeah,
week,
we got to do Saint Seraphim soon too, and I want to do Saint George, my patron saint, as well. So yeah, we've got a few.
is your patron saint?
Yeah, Saint George is my patron saint.
He's my patron saint.
Oh, glory to God.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, it was super weird. I've only been to an Orthodox church like a handful of times, and we just became Catholic. I wanted to be Orthodox for a long time, but for weird, that's part of this whole story. Is God told me to be Catholic. But I visited an Orthodox church it was last week. Feels like forever ago, and it's always a miraculous thing for me when you walk into a church, and Catholic churches in the United States are kind of stereotypically known for not being super duper welcoming. Like, people sneak into mass, receive the Eucharist, and kind of go home. It's kind of like a stereotype. And it's a pretty rare parish that has a really good, a good community where they always do coffee hour afterwards, and they actually welcome new visitors and all this stuff. And so coming from Protestant world into the Catholic world was a little bit, it's a little bit shocking. So whenever I find a parish that's not like that, it's kind of shocking to me. And there have been two instances where I've visited a church. One was an Eastern Catholic church and one was an Orthodox church, where just during Divine Liturgy, an elderly person glommed onto me and said, "You're new. You're my new favorite person. I'm going to show you how to do all this and introduce you to every person in the church. Make sure you get food after we finish Divine Liturgy." And this happened to me last week at St. Seraphim at Richard Rowland's church, actually. Now, I visited completely on a whim. She drugged me over and, in addition to filling me with food and listening to my story and just introducing me to everybody, she bought me a book from the bookstore and 2 icons. And I was just like we're trying to find icons to put in our icon corner that's been slowly growing over the past year. But this is one of the ones that she gave me. This is stuff that you can't get in the United States anymore, apparently.
Ooh.
Oh, that's Saint Seraphim.
Yes,
Right?
that is Saint Seraphim of Sarov. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that not?
Wow.
So
I've never
beautiful.
seen that icon. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You can't really see it, I don't know, but there's a bear there next to him.
There's the bear there.
Yeah,
That's
there's the bear. Yeah.
you got my icon, mister.
So that's I had it wrong. That's Saint Seraphim. That's not Saint.
That's Saint Seraphim of Sarov. Yeah.
Okay.
Sarov. Yeah.
Well, I guess I have to look into this now. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, Evgeny says, I've had such uncanny serendipities. I want to hear about those. And I've been reading your Substack lately, and it's pretty magnificent, I must say.
He has a Substack?
Yes, he does. It's called The Philosophy of Language, and it's just great. And I don't know how he does it, but I think it's every single day he puts something out.
Well, per a recommendation from Risto, I started reading Poetic Diction, which may be
Ooh.
related.
Poetic Diction by Owen Barfield.
Yes, yeah.
I haven't read that one yet.
Quite enjoyable. I really like it. It does, as he described it, it helps explain poetry to the left brain. It's nice, which is what I need. I mean, I love poetry, but it's like it helps to have
the Psalms are poetry, my friend.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And that's why when Graham did the 90th, when he translated it in the way that he did, he just gave it life.
Yeah.
He gave it so much life. It was just amazing. Yeah.
That was a turning point for me in his talk. I didn't like his talk. I told him that. I like for the first, and you warned us too, Shari. Like,
I did.
But Psalm 90 was the turning point for me, where I was like,
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to this, right?
Yeah.
What's missing here, folks? Yeah.
That was cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first time I read his Substack, I wrote him and I said, we need to talk. I need to hear more. What is happening? So, but he's doing the thing that a poet would do, because a poet is prophetic by nature. He sees into something that nobody else sees. And it's what we would have all done to, the crazy prophets. What are you doing? Why are you laying on your side? Why are you letting the ravens feed you? Did you know that was like really bad, that ravens feed Elijah in Jewish law?
Yeah,
like,
they were like trash animals.
Birds.
They were like pig. Yeah, it was like flying pig. Yeah.
And, like just all of it, right? Every, what are you doing crying under that little tree there? Yeah. Anyway, it's people don't want to hear those things. And for me, it's just been so long. Oh, look at this. Can't believe it. It's been so long. I've been so long at this that I know that when I hear something that pisses me off, I need to listen more intently. And so that's what I did with Graham. I leaned in. So, is that you, my sister?
Yes, and I just wondered if you're talking about me pissing you off.
That's why you guys are so close.
No, I just went on and heard your chat, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I tried to make a comment, and for some reason it wouldn't accept my terrible words. So I thought I'd just come on and say I'm really resonating with what you're saying, and I just tuned in. So yeah,
Awesome.
really exciting.
Glory to God.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah. Do you remember Corey?
Have you had serendipitous experiences?
Oh gosh, she's full of them.
I know. I felt like meeting Tracy was a serendipitous experience for me.
Tracy, I told my wife Margaret your story about the visitors that you had that you didn't know what to do with in your home. That was a pretty good one.
Oh,
Oh,
gosh.
Tracy, tell that story, please, right now. Everybody needs to hear it, and it needs to be on YouTube. And if
Oh.
Evgen's watching still, he'll love it.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Wow, it's 8:42.
I actually have to go to bed because it's 10:42 here. But I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen while I'm going to bed.
Good night, Corey.
I love you
All right,
guys.
Corey, thanks for joining
Love
us.
you too.
God bless you on
Bless
your
you.
strange journey.
We'll talk, Corey.
Yeah, that was nice to hear, Corey. Yes. Oh gosh, where do I start? Well, the story goes that a number of years ago we had someone calls. We do accommodations sometimes, and there was a group that wasn't known to me that was supposed to come into the community and do some things, and I wasn't too sure of who it was, or I had no connection to it, and so I decided to say yes because the people who they were supposed to be booked with weren't able to have them. So I got them, and while they were there, I realized that they weren't very connected. I noticed that they were. I mean, I live in a really beautiful area. They weren't looking around. I started realizing that they were more interested in just staying indoors, which is very uncommon here, especially during a beautiful day. And there was a lot of people that were just, yeah, just sitting in the group and just and and when I said, okay, we're doing breakfast, and then after breakfast, what would you like to do? Well, we just need quiet, and we need to stay in this space for a while, and I was fine with that. You know, I really because our space is available to them. So I said, well, that's great. And but we need it really quiet, and we don't need to be disturbed. And I said, that's no problem. And so I was preparing lunch and cleaning up and just getting ready because that's what we do. And suddenly, my one of my girls came in and said, my daughter's visiting, and said, do you see what's happening there? And I said, no, I don't. What's going on? And I looked in and I thought, oh, okay. Well, there was a what do they call those, Sherry? Mortal and pestle and what is it called
Mortar,
again?
mortar and
Mortar.
pestle. Yeah.
Mortar and pestle. Yeah. And there was two of them, and they were being passed around in the group. There was some low tones going on, and I sort of went, oh. And so my daughter said, Mom, I think there's something going on here that's, well, it looks like some kind of a, oh gosh, I can't find the word for it. Like a,
Incantation?
yeah, something going on there. And I said, oh, okay. She said, who are these people? I said, I actually didn't know who they were. They were just sent to me. And she said, Mom, I don't like this. And I said, I know I'm having a strange feeling about it too. And she said, and why are we supposed to be quiet and honor this going on in our home? And she said, Mom, you know, our home is not our home. It's God's home. And I said, yes, I know that, dear. I know that. And she's an adult at the time. And my husband and I, all our kids have left home. But she was there visiting with her husband. And I said, just leave the house, leave me, because they were doing some things outside. I said, I need to talk to God about this because I'm not sure what's going on. So what I realized was it was something that was something to do with and for lack of a better word, dark arts, probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was an interesting, really interesting. Now, do I have any judgment? No, I actually don't have any judgment towards something like that, but I've never opened my home to something like that. And I thought, this is out of my wheelhouse. It's not something I'm not familiar with, but one time someone asked me, I know why you don't go down and join in on particular ceremonies and things that happen, that you consider them to be dark because you don't believe in it. Someone said that to me one time. And I said, actually, I want to tell you something right now. One reason why I don't participate with it is because I do believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it's powerful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I said, just because it's powerful doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
And they said, oh, okay. I said, yeah. So some things that are powerful aren't good. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was feeling at the moment. I thought there's something powerful going on here and something that is supernatural, and it doesn't feel good. So my daughter left, and I put my hands on my kitchen counter and I said, okay, Lord, I need to tell you something here. If I would have known that that's what these people were going to come into my house and do in my living room, I would have never said yes. And he said to me, exactly. That's why I didn't tell you. And I went, wait, what? And he said, Tracy, there's light and a presence in your home that they can experience that they wouldn't otherwise experience anywhere else. This is my home. And this is me. And I thought, what do you mean? This is me. He said, this is my plan. I want them to experience me. And they're going to experience me in your home because this is my home. And he said, Tracy, light overcomes darkness. Darkness cannot overcome light. And I thought, oh, okay. And I had this image in my head of putting my hand over a cup, walking into a, a, a room in the daylight, taking my hand off the cup and the daylight filling the cup. And he said, darkness won't overcome the light. The light will overcome the darkness. And my daughter, when she came in a second time, she said, I feel like banging pots and pans and making a racket. Why should we honor this in this house? Why should we honor this? And I said, listen, let's just wait. And that's what I was doing, was just talking to the Lord about it. So I had the discussion with the Lord. He told me, okay. So I said, okay, so this is your plan. And yes. And then he said, now I want you to honor these people. And I want you to honor them as though they're having a prayer meeting and a Bible study. I want you to respect them. I want you to love them. And I want you to serve them. And I said, okay, I will. Okay. And then all of a sudden, my daughter came in and she goes, Mom, look, there's a commotion in there. There's something going on. And I said, oh, what is it? So I looked out, we peeked around the corner and we saw them. And they were gathered around our big picture window. And one of our wild cats brought her kittens up on the porch. And they were tumbling and playing in the sunshine. And these people had put down their mortar and pestle, and they were at the window and they were just, oh my gosh, oh, how cute. And they were taking pictures and everything. And the Lord said to me, that's how I distract. And I went, okay. Yeah. So that's a story for you.
And how did they leave there?
Well, when they came, it was literally no eye contact. And we're very hospitable, and they just didn't want to receive it. When they left, we were embracing in the parking lot, and tears. Some had tears, and to this day, I actually have people who come back and visit that are connected through the group that we've they just said they had a wonderful, wonderful time. And yeah, so that's a story that Shari was mentioning.
Mhm.
Wow.
How's that for
Yeah.
serendipities?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for hospitality, right? And showing hospitality to anyone who comes to your door. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's pretty moving.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
there's that scripture, isn't it, in Hebrews, that you should show hospitality to anyone who shows up at your house, because many have entertained angels unawares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm just trying to remember when those angels showed up at Abraham's tent. Didn't Sarah say something like, or no, it was, maybe I'm thinking of Mary and Martha. Anyway. Yeah. We have these moments, where, like Tracy's daughter, we feel ownership, but
Yeah.
that's, we don't own anything, and it's God's. Everything is God's, right? Like if everything is gift, then you have to take that position that even this, right? So yeah, it's love that story, Trace.
It's really interesting.
Something to think about.
Yeah, I'll be
I know
someone
not
else.
everyone's going to agree, but love your enemies. Doesn't get much clearer than that.
Right. I read a saint who said that that's the easiest way to judge how spiritually advanced you are, is by how you feel about your enemies. That's it. And if you don't love them, then keep practicing.
Well,
Yeah.
it was a test in that for me it was a test, because I've dug in times in my life, because I get so dug into what I believe is absolutely true. And then I get like I'm going to stand my ground, and I'll fight to the death. It's kind of I'm a pretty black and white person in that way. And so, I felt like here I was dug in, and sometimes the Lord's had to say, it's time to get out of the foxhole, because you're just shooting at random sounds here. And you might end up, that people get killed by friendly, what is that?
Friendly fire. Friendly fire.
Yeah, friendly fire.
And I'm like, he's like, you're gonna, sometimes you think it's an enemy, Tracy, but sometimes it's me. And so what my thing is, I'm not suggesting that people open their homes to seances. You know what I mean? Like,
Of course.
this is not what I'm suggesting. But what he does sometimes to me is he says, what you think is not. And how much faith do you have in what you're saying? Like, you say this is God's house, and you say that you believe that with God being with me means his presence being with me. So why wouldn't it go to that extreme where if that's the truth, then these people are actually sitting at my feet, and they're going to experience what I have to say. And why would you come in and try to, take that over and try to think what's best? So that Mary and Martha thing does remind me of that, Shari.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a Martha move. What do you think you're doing? Or even Judas. We could have used that money to feed the poor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It even goes farther than that, because it's like when he said, I want you to treat them as though that, as though it is already. And so what it spoke to me is that the reality of actually what he sees them as is what
Mhm.
he's designed them to be. And I believe that's for his kingdom.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is you treat them as though they are in my kingdom,
hmm
because that's what they're designed for. So you honor that in them,
Yeah.
not the other thing.
Right.
You honor
Yeah.
that in them. And what that does, as Shari and I talked about this the other day, when we bring attention to something, we give it life.
hmm
Yes. Right. Yep.
Bravo, Chase.
Yeah. Beautiful.
hmm
Well, I have a question that I wanted to ask the two of you. I'm sorry, Steve, we haven't heard at all from you. We saw you for a minute and then you disappeared again.
I'm just arriving at home, and I
Oh,
got
okay.
car noise. So.
Cool. Good. That'll give me a chance to ask this question, because I've been thinking about this for a long time. And you two, so I only know about your life, Tracy, because of what Shari has shared about her life. And so I know you guys grew up together. And you don't know much about me, Tracy, but Shari knows more about me. But our upbringings were very similar in a lot of ways. And one question I had for both of you, because both of you are very delightful and very, very old souls, and what it almost feels like an alchemy where you take the suffering of your youth and you've transmuted it into being very interesting and loving and curious and just fearless people, both of you. And I'm wondering what that process, and I don't know if you can put this succinctly or shortly, I don't know if you need to, but I'm really wondering how to do that, because I've done some of that work, but I don't think I'm as far along as you two at changing that into an offering, if that makes sense.
That's beautiful. Makes me want to cry, Jeremy.
That's probably part of the answer.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know how to, like, God does that work to me,
Yeah.
like all I know about myself is that I'm stubborn, I'm hard-headed, I've kicked and screamed, but and kind of gotten dragged. I feel a little dragged by God into stuff, and I think that's, oh gosh, I don't even know. I haven't even thought about this that much. Like I just don't see myself as anything great. Like I just see my failings. Like I just see my shortcomings. And like I've actually said in this part of the corner, I'm a slow learner. Okay. Like I'm 62. And I feel like, all these young men that I see that are digging into these things now, I wasn't interested in any of this then. I was just doing my thing and getting knocked over and getting back up again. That's all I kept doing. And so I just, like, all I ever want to say is I'm a sinner saved by grace. That's it. That's it. I don't know what else to say. I have no clue honestly.
That makes a lot of sense. Honestly, that helps.
Yeah.
We've had that conversation a bit, Jeremy, Shari, and I. And I've actually said, where on earth did we get this tenacious kind of
Resilient. Yeah.
like where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
When you asked me that question, I felt like there's been times in my life where you know those cartoons where you see the cartoon character wham into a wall and then you hear that noise that goes, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel. I feel like I've been walking around in my life and I just go slamming into walls. I end up, falling on my ass and I can hear that noise in my
Yeah.
head. But then I hear what Jesus said to the disciples, sort of like, so now what? Where are you gonna go now, Trace? Are you gonna run off and leave me? And my response is always, where else would I go? Because I do know what the alternative is.
Mm-hmm.
And the alternative for me was literally death.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I, when I was invited to something else, and I was graciously invited by God, for lack of a better word. I don't think there is a better word, but
Mm-hmm.
my friend said God sometimes is great outdoors too, right? But yeah, God. But yeah, I just feel like there's where else am I going to go, and maybe that's why is because I know what the alternative is. When I was very young, I felt like I was at a crossroads, and I was going to choose death. Literally, I wanted to die, and I thought that was the only alternative I had because I didn't see anything better. And when I was invited to choose life, in my very rebellious teenage attitude, I said, okay, I'll try it. But if this doesn't work out, I'm out of here. I'm going back to plan A. And I guess maybe that's why for me, I just feel like it's kind of I'm an all or nothing type person. And I'm not saying I'm doing it right. But
Mm-mm.
like I said, I've got lots of bumps and bruises on my head from walking into walls and just not knowing what next. And that's just been for me. That's kind of that's what I was thinking of when you said that. Yeah.
You know,
That's
one
really
of the
beautiful.
one of the things that I have thought about is, and everybody takes it the wrong way because they're like, well, you can't say yes to everything. But I said yes to everything. I didn't which doesn't mean I said yes to everything. Okay. There's a
Right.
big E everything, and then there's a small E everything.
Sure.
And the big E everything, whenever it requested something from me, I said yes. There were just certain things that I knew that I couldn't turn my back on, no matter how terrifying they might be. And what's interesting for me about getting older is the older you get, the frailer you are, like even in spirit, right? Like you don't have the physicality, you don't have the stamina, and therefore the spirit shrinks a little bit. And so when everything asks everything from you, you're like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm too scared. And so like when that happened with Nathan and Shelley, I was like, okay, no, that's just absolute ridiculously crazy. But then I know everything with a big E. I know what it sounds like. And after a while I have to say, okay. And and God is patient, right? Wait. He says, wait. and he starts early because of because he knows that we're just like dumbasses.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I better start now because I need the result over here.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
plants take time to grow.
when my husband expired before my very eyes, I was like, not now. I said to God, not now. I can't handle it. Like, and I'm like, you use the term fearless. I have handled a lot of things, but I just couldn't handle that. And a miracle happened. It was Easter Sunday, and he was resurrected from the dead. And seriously, he was like, Job, Job from this little corner.
Yeah.
Job is a paramedic. He said, Shari, the chances of you reviving him were very slim to none. He said basically that when that valve closes, it's a Charlie horse. Okay, it's a seizure. Like he was dying of lack of oxygen to the brain. Mm-hmm. And he said, and it when it lets go. I said, no, when? He said, when he's dead. That's when it lets go. He died. And he was resurrected, So it's like, I said to him in the hospital when I was leaving, I said, see you later, Lazarus. But, and God heard me. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, not now. So God is good.
Amen.
God is good.
When I was a young man, I was hit by a car, and afterward I was quite angry, and I was quite cruel to my family, angry, and I was taken out. I was like 14, so I was already going through puberty, and that happened.
You probably had a brain injury too.
Oh yeah, no, I did. Yeah, I was. Yeah, he was doing 60 when he hit me from behind. So,
and those days, they didn't know anything about that stuff.
No, this was before Iraq War, which is where they learned everything about traumatic brain injuries.
Yeah,
and then the NFL later. So yeah, at this time they really didn't know what to do to help me. And but I remember meeting with my Mormon bishop at the time, and he said something I'll never forget. He said, God counts the tears of the women in your life, and you'll have to account for every one of them after this life. That just that feels related to what you were sharing about with your husband, where you were just saying not now, right? It's like, I know I have caused that feeling in my mother, and in my, I know I'm saved by I've been saved. My life's been saved by the prayers of my mother more than one time. But I also know she shed a lot of tears for me, and so your husband was brought back by your prayers, and I mean, these are heavy things, right? We don't even know what that means all the way. We won't until everything.
Here's the best part of the story, Jeremy. I'll tell you this. I was driving home the next day. I stayed at my mom's for the night. I had to come home because I had goats, I had chickens, I had dogs.
Yeah, life goes on, right? Yeah.
Life goes on, and I was driving home, and I was just numb because the whole thing, like that moment where he died, like I saw him just sink into the earth. Like he got really small, really fast, and I just felt like I can't even explain it. But anyway, I'm driving home, and I'm in shock. And all of a sudden this voice goes, because I was thinking about when I put my hands together to give him CPR, and I never took a CPR course. I didn't know anything. I was thinking while I was doing it, is this the right side of his chest? Like I had no idea where his heart was. Okay. And yes, he does have a near-death experience, young God. And so I remembered seeing I remembered that vision of my hands going like this, and I felt like a third person observer watching my hands being put together. And that was replaying in my mind. And then this word came in and said, the angels put your hands there, right? And I was like, okay, that's just you. It's just you thinking that, Shari. Just don't be stupid, whatever. And I get home, I phone my neighbor, Chelsea, and I'm like, Chelsea, this and this happened. I might need some help on the farm. If I need you, can I call on you? I told her what happened. I gave her the scenario, and she used to work in palliative care. And I was telling her how at one point he sat up and he had this huge, he had this angelic smile on his face, and his eyes were looking right past me. Right? And I'm like, oh my God, he's leaving me, And then she goes, I've seen that smile, Shari. You know what that means, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, so if I need you, she goes, yeah, no problem. And I'm going to hang up the phone, and she goes, wait. And I said, yeah. She goes, the angels put your hands there, right? The same line, word for word. And I went, why did you just say that? Well, it's true. It's true, Shari. I said, you have no idea what that means to me right now. Okay, thanks, Chelsea. Bye. Click. And Chelsea's Baha'i. Right? Her and her husband are Baha'i. And I just like the whole thing.
Yeah.
She said the exact same sentence that I thought
when she said wait, like that word has been that word has keep coming up in this conversation. Wait.
Yeah. Wait.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait.
And I could wonder if God answered my prayer. I could wonder if this really happened. I could wonder. My husband had a near-death experience. The emergency doctor told me, he looked at my husband and goes, did you shit your pants? There's just no way people survive this, right? I talked to a German heart surgeon once. I said to him, tell me what to expect, because we knew he had this problem. He said, Shari, you won't have time. When it happens, it'll be over.
Yeah.
So.
And then it wasn't.
No, because I couldn't handle it. That was the answer to my prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how we got. Well, yeah. I don't know. Okay, so here's the thing. On top of all that, I felt like a wuss for it.
You felt guilty almost.
Yeah.
For the prayer.
Because I was so angry. I was like, not now. I was just screaming. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was so angry. I was like, how can you do this? And yet it got answered, Jeremy. And in the end, I felt like that was selfish of me, but that's how good God is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That picture on Tracy's thing, that's her and I. That's her wedding day. She's in the mirror. And that's me putting the veil on her.
Oh my God, that's so great.
We're just little girls in that picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, it's 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, Steve hasn't said a word. Steve, come in. Welcome.
You're looking
We're grateful.
like
We're grateful
pretty
you're here. You're eating.
dapper. You're looking dapper.
Yeah.
You're
No, we're
looking
grateful you
dapper.
joined us.
What?
I said you're looking really dapper.
I was at
Handsome.
dinner with some church people.
Nice.
He had a goose.
Oh, nice.
I got a couple of those
Yum.
in my freezer.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, yum.
Mhm.
I haven't had goose for a long time. Wow.
He's got a smoker.
Ooh.
It was pretty good. It was like,
Yeah.
smoked, but I guess that also means baked. But yeah, it was pretty good.
Sounds good.
But, yeah, so I was driving back looking at YouTube because that's what I listened to in the car, and I saw, oh yeah, it's Tuesday.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But, so I didn't catch the saint.
3 saints.
Oh, well, one of them was from Egypt because you were talking about him. But
Yeah, we did Saint Menas of Egypt.
Hmm.
And we did
And Saint Luke and
Saint Luke and
Luke.
Saint Langor. What was
I always
his name?
forget how to
The
say his name.
Centurion.
Longinus.
Longinus.
Longinus. Yeah. I mean, that's like one of the Christian televised renditions of the stuff I've seen recently was Longinus, but I don't know if that's correct.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah, he was the centurion who was at the foot of the cross, and and was the one who pierced Christ's side with a spear.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I watched what I consider to be pretty bad. It's called Thomas or Apostle Thomas or something. Kind of like an action thriller. It was pretty bad.
Oh.
It wasn't like his adventures in India either. It was him like running around and spying on all these conversations, so you get the entire backstory of what was going on between the death and resurrection. Like, what is going on here?
That's weird.
I watched it to the end just because it was so bad. It was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I watched
you
the
couldn't
really
look away.
it.
Something good has to happen.
My bar for heretical rejecting television because of heresy is pretty high, and this was like so bad, but so bad it was almost good. It wasn't even good.
Kind of like a B movie.
It's like worse. It's like the first attempt at a B movie. I think one of the myrrh-bearing women, Margaret, or I can't remember what her name was. She was kind of like his love interest, spawning him on. They didn't have sex or anything, but she was like really close to him, like, "Oh, it's going to be okay. I believe in you," or what, like cheering him on because he kept losing hope. It's like, man, this is pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous when you start psychologizing all that stuff.
Yeah. And Longinus was in there, and like, I'm pretty sure whatever happened in that show had nothing to do with what you were talking about tonight. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild. But who was the saint I was thinking about recently? I can't think of any, but Thomas's day came up recently, and this guy's getting baptized on Friday, and he's Thomas. His saint's Thomas, and he thinks it's funny because he's like doubting. He was a debater. He was a debater in the.
He was a professional skeptic.
Well, in our catechumen class, in the what about this? What about this? What about this? Like Thomas.
So
he's actually not called the doubter in Orthodoxy. He's not. He's actually praised in Orthodoxy.
Yeah, his questions. It's like, so there's proof. Like it's evidence or proof. Like he's talked about in two ways of proof. One of them was like, he saw and looked at the wounds, which that no one had like paid attention or thought about that kind of stuff. But he showed that it wasn't a ghost,
right?
Not an apparition. He was a man,
right?
And then the other was Mary. Like he's like, fuck, I missed it. And they like, let me see your body. Open the grave. And like, what? She's not here. You know, that's two proofs.
Yeah.
Because Thomas, you know, being,
Right.
you know, my brother's like Thomas, like, just show me the Carfax.
My husband's like that, actually.
Yeah, show me the facts. You know, God,
Yeah.
it's so annoying. I'm like,
He's like, what? Where did you say it was? Let me
stop
see.
asking me all
Yeah.
these details. I don't like, none of those are relevant to me. But it's like, you know, for some people they are, and thank God for those people, because, you know,
Right.
we'll fly off into space without the little O-ring we're supposed to have and blow up.
Right.
You know? Thank you for people like him.
Yeah, someone made the point that like all of the disciples didn't have a great reputation at the time, right? Because they had all kind of ran off and betrayed Christ and like abandoned him.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it was natural for Thomas to be like, what are you guys talking about? Like, you guys, this is like wishful thinking. What are you doing? You know, and it was understandable that he didn't trust them because they were so afraid and had kind of abandoned Christ. So
Yeah.
kind of was a
They
different
were
way of
all
looking at
having a
Thomas.
panic attack. He's like, calm down.
Yeah. Well, and even on the road to Emmaus, right? They're like, we thought he was the one.
Yeah,
He
it's
was
like,
going
who
to
you guys
redeem
talking
Israel,
about?
and he did it,
Haven't
you know. And
you
Christ
been
is like,
around? Were you been under a rock? It's like, kind of.
Well, you know, that's a perfect example of like me going, not now, you know, just panicking, just freaking out. And God is so patient and so kind and long suffering. And Jesus himself explains the whole thing. And they still don't know who he is.
Yeah. So it's after the ascension, and maybe there's other reasons, but in a number of services, not just the liturgies, it's been read recently, like they go up on the mountain. You know, this is before the ascension. They go up on the mountain and with the apostles, and some of them didn't believe, or some of them had trouble believing, or something like that. And I'm thinking, so all the miracles that you witnessed, let alone heard about, and then you saw him dead, or at least if you ran away and didn't see it, everyone says he was killed, and now you're following him up some mountain. He's like, yeah, I'm still not sure. I don't know what to believe. And it's just, you know, I get it, but it seems so silly, you know, like heal a blind man. And
It
then
seems silly to us because we've got the whole story.
Yeah. And I'm not
right?
there. I'm
like
not.
when you're in it, and
I mean,
it's
I'm like
really hard to know these things. And this is why, like, I don't think God expects us to know these things.
No, and that's partly why I'm Orthodox now, or even just Christian, period, is because I just decided that all my worry about having to understand the things and know the things, I just kind of like put that aside. And everything that is true and that matters, it's like all that became so very obvious, and then the rest is kind of following that, you know. But it wasn't, it's like, blessed are those who believe and don't see. I still wonder about that, because it's like I see, like Jesus said, they'll know us by our fruits. And I see that. I see that evidence. And in my life, I've seen what happens when people, confess and repent. I've seen what that does. And I see what the body of Christ is. And, no offense to everybody else, but I've been to a few churches, like not even a dozen, nothing close like that, but I've been different places, and I've listened to different people talk, and then I'm in the church I'm in, and maybe only me, only my heart is opened, but they were all the same. I don't know. But it's like what I'm seeing, that's evidence. And so it's like maybe I'm not blessed because, I did have to see it to really believe it. I didn't like think, what I believe
Yeah, but the
all of
thing
this.
is, though,
Then showed up to church. I'm like, still not sure. And I showed up and I'm like, wow, this is undeniable and obvious. And I believe, I didn't
mhm.
see Jesus like walking around or a guy walk on
No,
water.
you did not. I
Right.
was just going to make that point.
Yeah, I didn't see that stuff. But what I am seeing is like, at least this is, and it's not, this is the claims of the Orthodox Church. Like,
Mhm.
this is what salvation is. This is what your cross is. This is what you should expect in your life and what it's for. And here's how you should interact with it. And here's how we were commanded, or this is what we were told. And this is what the teaching of the fathers for all these centuries. And this is what we're trying to do. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I see it. I know it. And I'm not having to get over like, oh, if you just pray hard enough, you're going to get a better car.
Mhm.
And then like all my praying doesn't result in a better car, and then still having to have faith anyway.
Mhm.
There's nothing like that being said to me.
Right. Yeah.
And and but like, yeah, anyway, it is interesting. And I think about like, so this gospel, the kind of gospel is, if we're right, I think we're all Orthodox on this thing right now. But if we're
We're
right,
close.
if the church is right about what the gospel is and what they've been saying, just imagine being like a slave in Ephesus, hearing this and being like, yeah, sounds good. I'll die
Mhm.
for this. I'm like, wow, as opposed to being like, oh yeah, you just catch a bird and cut its gizzard out and burn it, and the loved one that was taken from you, sold into slavery somewhere else, will fare better,
Mhm.
as opposed to like, pray for the ones who took them away. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's just
Mhm.
like, it's just amazing to me that like it didn't die out in like 20 years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
It's beautiful.
and it's kind of it's a refutation because in my atheist days, I remember it was just like, well, the whole show me a sign.
Yeah.
But that's not adequate. It doesn't matter if you see miracles. You can still be like, oh, nope, I can't believe this.
Well,
I'm being
yeah,
tricked,
like
or I can't see this is. I don't believe it, or it doesn't
With the
matter,
solar
or
flare, I can explain it,
yeah, right,
or they
or
did it on Sunday, so I'm not even gonna like worry. I'm not even gonna talk about. He didn't used to see, now he sees. But it was on Sunday, so let's make a big
yeah.
deal about that.
Oh, it was black magic. Oh, he's
Or
casting out
that.
the devil by the power of the devil, right? Like all
Right.
this. It's like it doesn't matter. You can see miracles and still not believe. It doesn't take a miracle, and
Yeah.
miracles don't convince you, right?
well, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I watched a guy come back from the dead, and that didn't convince me that that was necessarily an answer to my prayer. And here's the thing. The reason I didn't think it was an answer to my prayer was because I didn't think I was praying the right thing, because I didn't think I had the confidence to pray the right thing, that I was being selfish instead. I
Wow.
was seeing myself as a sinner and getting in God's way. And maybe it was my husband's time. And oh, what if I gave him 15 more years like Hezekiah, and now it's going to be shit from now on? And like all the stuff that goes through your mind
No.
instead of just saying, thank you,
Thank you.
and that's why my behind neighbor said, Shari, wait, Shari, it was the angels that put your hands like that. Repeated the exact phrase that I
Mhm.
heard. That's why
I'm gonna segue a little bit because when I tuned in, I feel like it's in the same vein, but I don't know, maybe not. But I heard you guys kind of like wrapping up, and Jeremy and Sherry saying, "Oh my gosh, like what does this mean for me? I feel like I've been kind of being pushed to something, and I know I need to and I want to, but I don't know, you know, and I was really identifying that when I tuned in, and like Steve, I just tuned in, so I didn't hear anything about the saints. So I'm going to back up, and I'll listen, you know, to what you guys were saying. But and I think the reason why is today I I felt that same feeling, and suddenly I was like 7 years old in a playground, and I had just climbed one of the tallest slides in the playground, and I was sitting up on top, and I was looking at the slide below, and I felt this sense that this hesitation. I know I need to go, but
Mhm.
should I go?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so what I'm reminded of in this last piece that I'm hearing is it's this precipice, right? I mean, I've been brought to that so many times.
Mhm.
This thing where I mean, and you know, for me the fun factor is always important. That's why it's a slide. He gave me a slide this time. No, years ago it was a cliff. So I've
Yeah.
I've graduated to the slide now. But it's like, oh, you just feel that hesitation. I don't know if you remember that, but I was brought to that today. I was just that
Oh, it's
hesitation
really beautiful.
is
Yeah.
should I? You know, I want to, but should I? And
Mm.
yeah, and so I just I didn't hear what you were discussing about the saints, but I got that tail end
Mhm.
part.
Perfect.
And then I was identifying in a sense what Steve was talking about in this place where you do kind of transition into I love that word transition too, but um because you do have to go from one place to another,
Mhm.
and it does feel like an upgrade in a sense, but it seems like it's so ongoing. And I remember one time having this
Mm.
discussion when I was thinking past to those moments when I was sitting in the forest in Prince Edward Island on the east coast of Canada, the shores of the ocean, and I had a fire in the bushes because that's always what my sister and I used to do is anytime we would crawl into the center of a forest and we'd always make a fire because fire was like it felt like someone else was there
Mhm.
when we had a fire. It's like there was a friend, and I remember sitting there thinking about, is this all there is to life? And considered at the time I started to plan taking my life. And it was interesting because I was reminiscing about that in prayer. And I said, you know, I guess that's where it all began, is where my journey began with you, when you offered me something else. And I heard him say, no, that's not where it began. And I said, that it's not where it began, but that was the precipice again, you know, that was the cliff. That was are you going to step out? And he said, no, no, that wasn't the beginning. And I said, well, what was then? And he said, the beginning was the beginning of the journey.
Mhm.
Your beginning was the beginning. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, and all of a sudden I felt like Ruth, you know, the Ruth and Boaz, where,
Yeah.
you know, when she was gleaning and scratching and trying to get as much as she could off the fields. In the meantime, Boaz had told those guys, kick the sheaves off the wagon, kick them off, make sure she's provided for. And I've always felt like that when I met him. It felt like the Ruth and Boaz, where I'm sure, I just know that there was this moment when Ruth said at one point, it was you, wasn't it?
Hmm.
It was you that got them to kick the sheaves off, that provided for me. I
Mhm.
didn't know then, but now I know it was you, wasn't it?
Mhm.
And so that's what I was thinking of when you were
Mm.
talking about that stuff, Steve, about that journey. I've always had the saying that my experience with church, quote unquote.
Hmm.
And my experience with God has always been two different things.
Mhm.
And I always felt like I wanted to find somehow, how do I put this together?
Wow.
And I felt like I was always walking around with my experience in my hands, like a cloak. I was looking for somewhere to hang it.
Oh.
And I would go somewhere else and I would be like, oh, maybe there's a hook here. Maybe I can hang it here. And then it would
You
be
two
like,
are
no.
like so full of metaphors. I love it.
No, I love
Oh,
it. It's like
there's
listening to
another-
a poem. It's so beautiful.
There's
Yeah,
another hook
exactly.
here. Maybe there's a hook here. And then, oh, maybe there's a hook here, you know, and it felt like everywhere I went, I was looking for somewhere to hang it. And then one day I was complaining that, am I ever going to find somewhere to hang this? And the Lord said to me, stop. Why do you have to hang it? And I was like, what do you mean? Why do I have to hang it? He said, why do you have to hang it? Why don't you just wear it?
Love that.
Mm.
Yep. It's the mantle that, who was that? Elijah didn't want to, or no, Elijah gave to
Elias.
Elias.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, well, thanks for the conversation this evening, you guys. I thought I was going to be lights out, and then I turned on the YouTube, and
Well,
there you
no,
are on the YouTube.
it's been a real pleasure. And just to tie it in, I know you didn't hear the same part, but Saint Longinus, he was the centurion who was at the foot of the cross, and then later in his, like, not long after, he went back to his home city and started converting people. He was from Antioch. He started converting a bunch of people, and the local prefect did not like that, and so he sent out a decree for the death of Longinus. And so the soldiers came to his house, and he knew why they were there. He was a centurion, and he invited him. He met him himself when they came into the city, and he brought him to his home and fed him dinner. And then afterward, they revealed why they were there, not knowing who he was.
Mm.
They were like, we're actually here looking for a Longinus. And he said, oh, that's me.
Oh my
And
goodness.
and then they said, oh, well, we don't want to kill you. You just fed us. You just took care of us. Run away. We'll just say we couldn't find you. And he said, no, you need to do what you were told to do. So him and his companions were martyred. Because they beheaded him. But it reminded me of your story earlier about showing hospitality to, even the people who have come to martyr you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's different examples of that in the lives of the saints, but that one was the one we shared today, and it ties directly into this story you shared earlier.
Mm. Wow, thanks for
Yeah,
that.
and you just, yeah. Mm-hmm. And you don't know how these things ripple out into
We're
the
still
world.
talking about it, what, 2200, like 1800 years later, right? We're talking about the story of, or 2000 years later, we're talking about Longinus, right? Showing hospitality to the soldiers who came to take his life.
Yeah.
That surrender. It's like, not my will, thy will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Amen.
it's not my will to end this stream, but I really should.
Good night.
No, I know I have to work early.
Your little chickens will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a real honor. I really love this project. Thank you so much, Shari, for letting me be a part of this, and thanks for joining
Well,
us.
I'm
Tracy.
glad. I mean, I feel honored that you said yes to do it. So, yeah.
Joy.
It looks like I've got a task. Bye, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
I've got a task ahead of me this week.
Yeah, you got to build an outdoor prayer corner. You got to invite Saint Seraphim to your
I
well.
have it. It's all picked out.
Ah, can't
I haven't
wait.
actually
That's gonna
gone
be
out
great.
and done it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
maybe next summer I can make it out, God willing.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Bye, Upcycle. Thank you. And
Thanks a lot.
thank you,
Thanks again
everybody.
for your gift, Upcycle. And thanks for
Yeah.
joining us at the end, Desi. Good night, Cassandra. Good night, Joy.
Sandra. Good night, Joy. All right. Good night,
Good night,
all.
Moon.
Good night, Moon.